An origami crane sits on a windowsill, but this isn't a peaceful hobby. Heavy, ragged breathing fills the room as a piece of paper is gripped with desperate, shaking hands. For Iguchi Tatsuya, this innocent-looking bird is part of a soul-crushing punishment. Trapped in a cramped cell at the juvenile hall, Iguchi Tatsuya's sanity is fraying at the edges. His eyes bulge and his teeth grit in agony as he struggles to endure the absolute silence and the endless, mindless task of folding paper. This isn't just rehabilitation, it's mental torture. Suddenly, a series of violent bangs echo through the wing. The guards realize it's him again. Iguchi Tatsuya, the infamous mad dog, is having another breakdown in solitary confinement, his frustration boiling over into raw violence against the walls of his cage. The banging continues, relentless and desperate. The guards shout for him to stop, but the sound only grows louder. In this moment, Tatsuya makes a silent, fierce vow. He will do whatever it takes to never, ever find himself back in this hellhole. Fast forward 6 months. We're now in the Kanto region, far away from the cold bars of the Nagano Reformatory. The city is bustling, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence of the solitary wing. A new chapter of life is about to begin. The Takashimaya building towers over the streets. This is the stage for Tatsuya's return to society, a world he hasn't seen for half a year. But can a boy built for battle truly find a place in a peaceful city? Meet Iguchi Tatsuya. He's 17 years old, born in Komi, Tokyo, and he's just finished what he sarcastically calls a long vacation in Nagano. With his sharp, rebellious eyes and a face that's seen too many fights, he doesn't exactly look like a reformed citizen. His first taste of freedom? Looking at a swimsuit ad. For a moment, the hardened delinquent is just a teenage boy, mesmerized by the image and wondering if being out is really all it's cracked up to be. But Tatsuya's past isn't easily forgotten. He used to be a high-ranking member of the Tokyo Komi Outlaws, the 5th generation of a gang that treated the city like their playground. Back then, the police weren't just authority figures. They were his primary playmates. As the head of their special forces, Tatsuya was always at the front of the fray. Covered in blood and wearing a terrifyingly joyful grin, he was the embodiment of chaotic violence, making him a legend in the underworld and a nightmare for the cops. Does he regret attacking those police officers in Shinjuku? Of course he does, mostly because it landed him in juvie. He yawns as he waits for his ride, a stark reminder that even a mad dog can get bored with reality. "Hey, kept you waiting, huh?" A voice calls out. That voice belongs to Ishido, Tatsuya's parole officer. A cynical old man with a buzz cut and a perpetual frown, he's seen hundreds of kids like Tatsuya come and go. He doesn't expect much, except maybe for his bladder to hold out a bit longer. The reality of freedom hits Tatsuya. He's out, but he's on a leash. He has to report to Ishido once a month, and any slip-up means an immediate return to juvie. The warning is clear in Ishido's gaze, but Tatsuya's own eyes remain cold and defiant. "I'm out." 2 simple words that mean the world. Tatsuya stands amidst the urban landscape, officially a free man, but carrying the heavy weight of his reputation and the conditions of his parole. The city feels bigger than he remembers. They arrive at Sanrue, a charcoal yakiniku restaurant. This humble shop is meant to be his new home and his path to redemption. It's a far cry from the gang hideouts and the neon-lit battlegrounds of his past. Inside, Ishido checks the paperwork while Tatsuya sits in silence. The restaurant's owner, a woman with a kind but firm presence, tells him he'll be working his butt off starting tomorrow. Tatsuya seems to take in stride, though he's clearly out of his element. But his attention is quickly hijacked by another poster. He's panting and blushing, completely distracted by a beer ad featuring a woman in a bikini. It's clear that while he's out of jail, his teenage hormones are still in full control. This kind woman is Andy, Tatsuya's aunt on his mother's side. She and her husband run this place, and they've agreed to take him in when no one else would. Tatsuya knows he's lucky, but he can't help feeling a bit embarrassed by her warm welcome. Ishido doesn't let the mood stay light for long. He reminds Tatsuya that he was a troublemaker even in juvie, almost getting transferred to a high-security facility. He warns the boy to show Auntie the respect she deserves, or he'll regret it. The tension in the room spikes as Ishido leans in, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. "Are you serious about turning over a new leaf?" he asks. Tatsuya's expression hardens, his past and his future clashing in a single, intense look. Ishido scoffs, guaranteeing that at this rate, Tatsuya will be back in juvie in no time. The insult lands hard. Tatsuya slams his hand onto the table, the old mad dog briefly surfacing, while Annie tries to keep the peace with a nervous smile. Then, Tatsuya does something unexpected. He bows deeply, his head touching the table in a sincere dejiza. "I want to thank you for taking in someone like me," he stammers, his voice shaking with a rare vulnerability. He's desperate for this chance. There's a catch, of course. To get out, Tatsuya had to agree to stay far away from his old friends, the bad influences from his hometown. He's completely isolated now, a lone wolf trying to learn how to live among sheep. He accepts the terms, but the struggle is visible on his face. Auntie leads him to a small, weathered room tucked behind a restaurant. It's modest and lonely, but compared to the concrete cage he just left, this space feels like a kingdom. For the first time in 6 months, he has a place to call his own. She lays out the reality of his new life. He can sleep until his shift starts, but the rent comes out of his pay. Tatsuya watches her quietly, the weight of her kindness beginning to sink in as he prepares to speak from the heart. Looking at Auntie with a newfound sense of purpose, Iguchi Tatsuya delivers a quiet, heavy promise. "I'm going to do my best. Thanks for everything." He knows this is his last shot at a normal life. Annie breaks the tension with a playful, heavy slap on his back. "Then lighten up already. As long as you take your work seriously, you'll be fine." She reminds him he's on parole for about a year, her smile a warm light in his world. But beneath Tatsuya's calm exterior, a darker thought remains. His eyes narrow as he reminds himself of the one thing that truly scares him. He doesn't ever want to find himself back behind those cold, iron bars. It's not about being a good person or turning over a new leaf for God. Tatsuya's motivation is much simpler. He never wants to endure that origami punishment again. The sight of that paper crane is a haunting reminder of the psychological torture he left behind. Walking through the crowded city streets, Tatsuya feels like a ghost in an unfamiliar world. Starting from scratch in a new town with a new job, it's a lot to take in. He admits to himself that he never truly loved the person he used to be. His delinquent instincts haven't completely faded, though. As he spots a group of girls, his mad dog persona flickers to life for a second. But first things first, he needs to find his old friend, the local 7-Eleven. In front of the convenience store, Tatsuya finds more than just snacks. His gaze is immediately drawn to a beautiful Kawasaki motorcycle parked nearby and a tough-looking biker sitting next to it. That FX has been pimped out pretty nicely, he thinks, his eyes scanning every detail of the machine. He can't help but stare, his old interest in biker culture bubbling to the surface. The biker, Abe Kaname, is a massive, intimidating presence. With his goatee and weathered face, Tatsuya mistakes him for a 30-year-old geezer who's seen way too much action on streets. Tatsuya tries to keep his head down and walk away, but the staring has already started a fire. He feels Kaname's glare burning into the back of his neck. "Calm down. You're on parole," he tells himself, desperate not to let the old mad dog out on his first day. Inside the store, Tatsuya gets what he really came for, a pack of 7-Star cigarettes. His hands tremble slightly as he holds the familiar box, a small trophy of his freedom. He's excited about his first smoke in 6 months, only to realize he forgot to buy a lighter. He stands there like a fool, while Kaname watches him from outside with a contemptuous click of his tongue. The tension is already at a boiling point. They bark the same challenge at each other simultaneously. Tatsuya and Kaname lock eyes in a fierce, staring contest, two predators measuring each other's strength in the middle of a mundane parking lot. They stand face to face, the air between them thick with hostility. To any bystander, it's just two punks about to throw down, but for Tatsuya, this is a dangerous dance with his own freedom. Tatsuya realizes he glared back purely out of force of habit. Ah shit, he panics internally. He knows he can't get into a fight, but his pride won't let him back down easily. He tries to argue his way out of it, claiming Kaname was the one who started it. A dark, familiar grin starts to spread across Tatsuya's face, but the memory of his prison cell window stops him cold. He realizes it's not too late to just apologize and walk away, but his mad dog instincts are clawing to get out. Kaname isn't helping, laughing as he mocks Tatsuya's shaking voice and calling him a kid. He tells Tatsuya to just go home and leave the smoking to the grown-ups. The murderous rage inside Tatsuya finally reaches a breaking point. Tatsuya snaps, delivering a sharp, insulting comeback. How much longer are you going to play gangbanger, Grandpa? Just retire already. He hits Kaname right where it hurts, his face twisted into a terrifyingly joyful mask of aggression. Shocked, Kaname screams back, "Fuck you. I'm still 17. Tatsuya is stunned. This massive, bearded biker is the same age as him. The realization only makes the situation worse. Kaname grabs him. "You? Come with me," as they move to a dark alley. They stand alone behind a building, the sounds of the city distant. Kaname takes a long drag of his cigarette and tells Tatsuya that phonies like him should know when to stop acting tough. The fight is inevitable now. Kaname stares him down, asking if he has a death wish. Tatsuya just stands there, a dark shadow falling over his face as he contemplates the consequences of what's about to happen. There's no turning back now. Tatsuya starts to laugh, a low, chilling sound. "I can't turn back anymore. I don't want to turn back." He realizes that the peaceful life his aunt wanted for him is already slipping away. "If anyone's going to die here, it's you," he whispers. The mad dog of Komi is fully awake. Tatsuya's eyes are cold and predatory, his gaze fixed on Kaname like a wolf on its prey. The 6 months of suppressed violence are finally ready to explode. Kaname is visibly taken aback by the sudden, chilling shift in Eguchi Tatsuya's aura. Just as the tension reaches a breaking point, Tatsuya suddenly throws up his hand. "Wait," he shouts, halting Kaname in his tracks with a final, bizarre demand before their fists do the talking. Tatsuya demands a written oath. "No matter how much I get beat up, I won't tell anyone." He knows he can't afford to be reported to his parole officer, and he needs a guarantee that this geezer won't snitch when the dust settles. It's a fight for survival, but first, he needs some insurance. Eguchi Tatsuya isn't just looking for a fight. He's looking for insurance. "I won't fight if you don't write that," he demands. "Also, if I win, I get your lighter." In the back of his mind, the mocking face of his parole officer, Ishido, haunts him, guaranteeing his return to Juvenile Hall if he slips up. The thought of going back triggers a flood of traumatic memories. A single paper crane sits on a windowsill, a symbol of the mental torture Eguchi Tatsuya endured. Back in that cell, the air was thick with the sound of his own desperate breathing as he folded paper for hours on end. The psychological pressure was suffocating. Every breath was a struggle, and every piece of paper felt like a weight dragging him deeper into insanity. His eyes, wide and bloodshot, were fixed on the tiny square of paper in his shaking hands. The task was endless. Sweat poured down his face as he folded, creased, and shaped the cranes. His teeth were gritted so hard they bled, but he couldn't stop. The repetition was designed to break a man, and for Eguchi Tatsuya, it nearly did. The floor of the cell was a sea of thousands of paper cranes, a silent monument to his suffering. This wasn't just rehabilitation. It was an attempt to crush the mad dog out of him. Now, that memory is his greatest fear. Back in the present, Eguchi Tatsuya's eyes burn with a cold, hard fire. "I ain't ever going back to juvie," he vows. The fear has transformed into a dangerous resolve. He'll do anything to keep his freedom, even if it means playing by his own twisted rules. Abe Kaname is losing his patience. "The fuck are you talking about?" he growls, unimpressed by Eguchi Tatsuya's bizarre conditions. Tatsuya just smirks, his foot shifting as he prepares to move. Basically, as long as no one ever finds out, it's all good. The tension snaps. A lit cigarette falls through the air, hitting the ground with a faint sizzle. It's the silent signal for the start of the war. Iguchi Tatsuya strikes first, his fist flying forward with the speed of a viper. It's a clean, heavy hit right to Abe Kaname's jaw, catching the larger man completely off guard. Tatsuya doesn't stop there. He follows up with a series of blindingly fast strikes, his body moving with a lethal grace he hasn't used in months. The cigarette on the ground is forgotten as the alleyway erupts into violence. Blood splatters from Abe Kaname's mouth. Tatsuya is actually shocked by his own actions. Shit, force of habit again. He thinks. His body remembered how to fight before his brain could even think about his parole. Abe Kaname staggers back but quickly regains his footing. Tatsuya's eyes narrow as he watches the biker recover. He's impressed and a little worried that Kaname was able to respond to his initial blitz. This guy is strong, Tatsuya acknowledges. He watches Kaname wipe the blood from his mouth, his own heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. The mad dog has finally met a worthy opponent in this podunk town. Tatsuya doubles down on his demand. Write it. I ain't gonna fight if you don't. His gaze is unwavering. He's not just protecting his pride anymore. He's protecting his life. Without that signature, he's just a common thug bound for a cage. My name is Iguchi Tatsuya, and the curtain is about to rise on my new and exciting life. A dark puddle on the ground reflects the city lights, a grim omen of the path he's chosen. The rehabilitation his aunt dreamed of is already a distant memory. The alleyway falls into a tense silence. The nearby 11 store sign hums in the background, a stark contrast to the brewing storm in this dark corner. Write it, Tatsuya repeats, his voice low and dangerous. If you don't, I ain't gonna fight. Tatsuya's face is a mask of cold calculation. He's baiting Kaname, trying to force the larger man to play by his rules. He's not just a delinquent, he's a strategist. The two of them stand at opposite ends of the alley, a no-man's land between them. Abe Kaname looks at Tatsuya, a strange glint in his eyes. He's starting to realize that this kid isn't like the others. Abe Kaname wipes the blood from his chin, his expression turning from anger to curiosity. He looks at Tatsuya, weighing the boy's bizarre obsession with a written contract. This is getting interesting. Don't go anywhere, Kaname says, turning his back for a moment. Tatsuya watches him warily, expecting a sneak attack, but Kaname just walks to his bike to find something. Huh? You better not run away. Tatsuya shouts, his guard still up. To Tatsuya's utter surprise, Abe Kaname returns with a pen and a small notepad. He quickly scribbles something down and holds it out. Here, signed and everything. Is good enough for you. Tatsuya stares at the note. No matter how much I get beat up, I won't tell anyone. Dated July 22nd and signed by Abe Kaname. Tatsuya's jaw drops. What the hell? Who would actually do this? He wonders, noting the surprisingly nice handwriting. Tatsuya can't help but laugh. He's serious for a delinquent, a guy with integrity. He finds it hilarious and oddly respectable that Kaname actually followed through with such a ridiculous request. The tension between them shifts into a weird kind of bond. The brief moment of respect is over as the air suddenly turns cold. Abe Kaname lunges, his massive fist tearing through the space where Tatsuya's head was just a second ago. Tatsuya barely ducks in time. The whistle of the punch a grim reminder that the real battle has finally ignited. They trade blows with brutal intensity, Tatsuya's speed meeting Kaname's raw, unbridled power. No more words, just the heavy thud of bone against flesh as these two 17-year-old monsters tear into each other. But as the exchange heats up, Tatsuya begins to feel the true, crushing weight of his opponent's strength. The fight reaches a fever pitch. Abe Kaname delivers a thunderous blow that rattles Iguchi Tatsuya's entire frame. Tatsuya's eyes widen as he feels his control slipping, the mad dog struggling to keep his feet under the sheer pressure of Kaname's strength. Shit, he gasps, realizing he's in much deeper than he expected. Kaname follows up with another devastating strike, sending Tatsuya reeling backward. The impact is staggering, and for a moment the world spins. Tatsuya is being pushed to his absolute limit by this geezer, who fights with the power of a runaway truck. The intensity in Tatsuya's eyes is undeniable as he tries to regain his balance. He's being hunted in this dark alley, but his predatory instincts won't let him back down. Every fiber of his being is screaming to strike back, to prove that the mad dog of Komi is still the king of the streets. Finding an opening, Tatsuya lunges forward, burying his fist into Kaname's face. It's a strike fueled by desperation and raw talent. The sound of flesh hitting flesh echoes off the brick walls as Tatsuya finally lands a significant blow on the giant. Kaname's head snaps back from the force of the punch. Even a monster like him can feel pain. Blood sprays from his nose as Tatsuya's fist makes its mark, a testament to the boy's surprising power. The momentum of the fight is shifting yet again. Both fighters are now completely exhausted, their breath coming in ragged gasps. They stand a few feet apart, staring each other down, sweat and blood dripping onto the pavement. The initial adrenaline has faded, leaving only raw willpower to keep them upright. Ha! Ha! The alley is filled with the sound of their struggle. Despite the pain and the blood matting his hair, a dark, twisted grin spreads across Tatsuya's face. This feels good, he mutters. He hasn't felt this alive in 6 months. The mad dog is in his element, relishing the chaos of a true life-or-death brawl. I'm waiting. Small. He taunts, his hand beckoning Kaname forward. Kaname looks at Tatsuya with a newfound intensity. He's never met anyone this resilient, this insane, this motherfucker. He thinks, a mix of respect and annoyance bubbling within him. He realizes that this isn't just a punk, it's a monster in human skin. The world outside the alley remains oblivious to the carnage. In a nearby yard, a small puppy's ears perk up at the sound of the fight. The mundane reality of Chiba continues just a few yards away from this brutal clash of titans. The curious puppy watches from behind a fence, its innocent eyes fixed on the shadows where Tatsuya and Kaname are tearing each other apart. It's a strange, quiet witness to the violence that the rest of the city ignores. The puppy wanders closer to the Kawasaki bike, the symbol of Kaname's pride. The machine sits silent and gleaming, unaware that its master is currently bleeding out in the dirt nearby. The contrast between the beautiful bike and the raw violence is striking. The fight has ended in a stalemate of pure exhaustion. Both Tatsuya and Kaname are lying flat on the concrete, their bodies broken and spent. A crumpled pack of cigarettes lies nearby, a reminder of the petty reason this whole mess started in the first place. The curtain Tatsuya spoke of has risen on a very bloody stage. Tatsuya's face is a mess of bruises and drying blood. He looks up at the sky, his mind a fog of pain. He won, or at least he didn't lose, but the price was heavy. This is the reality of a life he tried to leave behind in Komi. Wait up! Kaname groans, struggling to even move his hands. Tatsuya isn't doing much better, his body shaking as he tries to push himself off the ground. They're no longer enemies, just two broken kids caught in the wreckage of their own aggression. Kaname manages to sit up, his breathing still heavy. He looks at Tatsuya, the anger gone, replaced by a weary acceptance. He's been beaten, or, at the very least, he's found someone who won't go down. The giant has been humbled by a kid. Tatsuya doesn't forget his prize. He holds out a bloody hand. You want to keep going? He asks, though they both know the answer. Kaname just sighs and reaches into his pocket, pulling out the lighter Tatsuya demanded before the fight. He tosses it onto the pavement with a faint click. Huh. Tatsuya's eyes widen as he sees his trophy. A promise is a promise. Kaname mutters, his voice cracking. Despite his terrifying appearance, he's a man of his word. He honors the agreement they made, handing over the lighter with a strange sort of dignity. Tatsuya is genuinely surprised by the giant's honesty. Picking up the lighter, Tatsuya looks at Kaname with a new sense of respect. He really does have integrity. He thinks he won the fight and the lighter, but he also found something he didn't expect in this town, a delinquent with a soul. Oh yeah, he'd give me his lighter if I won. Tatsuya remembers, a small smirk playing on his lips. Don't tell him. I'm saying. Kaname starts, his head bowed. Kaname's voice is low as he delivers a shocking plea. Don't tell anyone that you beat me. Tatsuya stares at him in disbelief. Wah! The terrifying biker is actually begging for his reputation. He's terrified that word of his defeat will spread through the streets. TSK! He clicks his tongue in embarrassment. The reason for his desperation is revealed. I'm a vice head of a gang named Kilihido. Kaname confesses, looking away in shame. So you can't tell anyone that you beat me. I need to save face. Tatsuya is stunned. This massive, intimidating man is actually a high-ranking gang leader, and he's worried about what the other delinquents will think. Tatsuya starts, his face going blank. That's so fucking lame. Tatsuya erupts, his face contorting into a mask of pure mockery. He can't believe that such a legendary-looking fighter is so worried about his rep. The Mad Dog has no patience for the petty politics of the gang world anymore. It's the most hilarious thing he's heard all day. Despite the ridicule, Tatsuya finally gets what he came for. He lights up one of his 7 stars with the one lighter, taking a deep, long-awaited drag. The smoke feels like heaven after 6 months of deprivation. And here I was about to have some respect for you. Shows what I know. He mutters through the smoke, while Kaname sits nearby, still nursing his wounded pride. Tatsuya stands alone for a moment, looking up at the afternoon sky. The smoke from his cigarette drifts upward, a small signal of his return to the world. His face is a canvas of the day's events, bruised, bloody, but ultimately free. His eye is sharp, reflecting the setting sun and the uncertain future ahead of him. In the quiet of the alley, Iguchi Tatsuya finally drops his guard. I just got out of juvie today, he admits, his head bowed as he reveals the truth to his opponent. Abe Kaname listens in surprise as Tatsuya explains the stakes. He's on parole, and even one minor incident could send him straight back. It's an unexpected moment of honesty between 2 former enemies. They sit together in the grime, 2 17-year-old monsters finding common ground in the most unlikely of places. As the first puffs of smoke drift into the evening air, the initial hostility fades into a tentative mutual understanding. They both have secrets to keep, and Tatsuya is about to make sure that silence goes both ways. Iguchi Tatsuya cracks a weary, bruised smile. He's not just doing Kaname a favor. He's looking out for himself, too. I'd really appreciate if you didn't tell anyone what happened today, either, he says. Both of them are now tied by a mutual secret, a pact made in blood and shadows to protect their fragile new realities. Abe Kaname stares at him, the realization finally sinking in. Sheesh, what's with that face? He mutters, seeing the weight Tatsuya is carrying. He finally understands why the boy was so desperate for that written note. For Tatsuya, this wasn't just about pride. It was about staying out of cage. Tatsuya just focuses on lighting his cigarette, the flame a tiny beacon in the dark alley. The smoke begins to drift as the 2 monsters find a moment of calm. Kaname breaks the silence, finally asking the question that's been on his mind since the first punch. What's your name? Tatsuya takes a long drag, his eyes reflecting a hard-won peace. Iguchi Tatsuya, he replies simply. Then, he looks back at the giant beside him. You? They sit side by side against the cold brick wall, 2 17-year-old outcasts sharing a single pack of 7 stars. The giant speaks his name with a rough pride. Abe Kaname. In this quiet moment, the hierarchy of gangs and the rules of society don't matter. They're just Tatsuya and Kaname, 2 fighters who recognized a kindred spirit in the middle of a mundane parking lot brawl. This was how I met Kaname. Tatsuya reflects, the gravity of this encounter already starting to settle in. Kaname looks over at him, the tension gone. Hey, Iguchi, he calls out. Tatsuya tilts his head back, exhausted but present. Yeah, he asks. The bond between them is unspoken, but it's forged in the kind of honesty that only comes after you've tried to kill each other. Looking up at the bright, afternoon sun, Kaname delivers one final observation. You're more of a grown-up than you look. Tatsuya can't help but snap back with his usual foul-mouthed charm. The fuck? How do you mean? But as the sun shines down on Chiba, Tatsuya knows his life has changed forever. This meeting was the spark that would soon set his new world ablaze with a chaotic, exciting intensity. Chapter 1 ends here, but the legend of the Mad Dog in Chiba is just beginning. In a dark alleyway behind the restaurant, Iguchi Tatsuya crouches down, sweat dripping from his forehead as he stares at a small guest. Meet Meatball, a stray puppy that has become the only friend Tatsuya can talk to in this strange new city. Tatsuya promises to get him something to eat. He shares his food with the pup, telling him to eat his veggies too. Despite his rough exterior, it seems Tatsuya has a soft spot for those who are alone, just like him. Feeling the need to maintain his pride, Tatsuya starts bragging to the dog. He was the legendary Mad Dog of Komi, a big deal where he comes from. But Meatball doesn't care about legends or reputations. He's only interested in the meat, leaving Tatsuya feeling a bit ignored. As the city lights glow in the distance, Tatsuya realizes that they're both just lonely souls trying to find their place in West Chiba. Back inside the yakiniku shop, reality hits hard. Iguchi Tatsuya is a terrible waiter. He's clumsy, out of place, and eventually the bottles on his tray start to wobble. Auntie quickly jumps in to fix his mistake, smiling kindly as Tatsuya bows his head in shame. This civilian life is proving to be much harder than street fighting. Auntie tells him to take 5. As Tatsuya walks away, she sighs, knowing that at least he's trying his best to change. In the back, Tatsuya considers quitting, but he quickly shuts that thought down. Quitting isn't an option while he's on parole. 1 year since leaving home, and he's still struggling to find his footing. He stares into the distance, the frustration of his forced peacefulness boiling just beneath the surface. He tries to practice his polite customer service face, but the result is more terrifying than friendly. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over him. It's Pops, his uncle and the owner of Min Min. The man is a silent wall of muscle, radiating an intensity that makes even Tatsuya break a sweat. Pops barely says a word, but his presence is enough to command respect. Tatsuya can't tell if the old man is impressed or just disappointed. Tatsuya's heart pounds. Did Pops catch him slacking off or doing those weird practice faces? He can feel the silent judgment. The silence stretches as Pops leans in, his gaze unblinking. Tatsuya is certain he's about to get a lecture or worse. Instead, Pops simply tells him to keep working at it and walks away. Tatsuya lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He survived another day. Just when he thinks the night is over, another familiar face appears. Tatsuya's eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the customer. It's Abe Kaname, the biker Tatsuya almost went to war with on his first night. The tension between them is instant, even in a restaurant. Neither can believe their eyes. Tatsuya wonders why this monster of a man is here, while Kaname looks equally disgusted to see his rival in an apron. Annie assumes they're friends and insists they sit together. Tatsuya is forced to share a grill with a man who could easily snap him in half. Kaname reveals he's been a regular here for years. He finds it hilarious that the so-called legend from Komi is now just a clumsy bo-ibon. Curious about Tatsuya's reputation, Kaname asks what he was like back home. He wants to know if the stories about the Mad Dog are true. Kaname boasts about his own near-perfect record, but Tatsuya's honesty catches him off guard. While Kaname has only lost 3 times in his life, Tatsuya admits he's lost dozens. For the Mad Dog, victory wasn't always the point. It was about never staying down. Since age 11, Tatsuya's life has been a non-stop cycle of brawls. But as the heavy conversation winds down, his focus shifts from past battles to the sizzling grill in front of him. He's finished sharing his history. Now, he's ready to share Kaname's dinner. The meal takes a chaotic turn as Tatsuya starts vacuuming up the food. "Hey, Iguchi, will you stop swiping my meat already?" Kaname yells, completely shocked. Tatsuya doesn't miss a beat, telling Kaname that eating just meat is bad for him. He even starts calling for Mayam because Tatsuya is stealing his food before he can even touch it. Tatsuya's response? No one likes a smartass. Outside the restaurant, They stand by Kaname's Kawasaki bike. Tatsuya is confused why Kaname parked so far away. Kaname explains that he didn't want the noise to bother the other customers. Tatsuya is secretly impressed by how seriously Kaname takes his role as a delinquent. He's a rebel with manners. As they finish their cigarettes, Kaname brings up their scrap from earlier that night. Tatsuya listens, the air between them still charged with a competitive energy. Kaname leans in, his expression dead serious. Just so we're clear, I still don't think I lost. For a guy like him, pride is everything. Tatsuya doesn't take that lightly. His eyes sharpen as he blows out a cloud of smoke. Say what? You want to go again? The mad dog is ready to bite at a moment's notice. Kaname just smiles, unbothered by the challenge. Maybe another time. I'm meeting my friends tonight. He's got bigger things on his mind than a rematch. As Kaname prepares to leave, Tatsuya grumbles, calling him a chicken shit. But Kaname pauses, looking back at him with a different look in his eyes. Hey, he calls out. Sitting on his bike, Kaname offers a rare invitation. You want to come with me? He's offering Tatsuya a glimpse into the real Chiba underworld. Kaname waits for an answer, his face unreadable. He's curious to see if this outsider has the guts to follow him. Tatsuya considers his options, looking at the bike and then back at Kaname. Sure, why not? He says, gripping the handlebars. It's better than sitting around waiting for his parole to end. With a thunderous roar, the bike screams down the highway. Tatsuya hangs on as they slice through the night air, leaving the quiet life behind. In the midst of the chaos, we catch a glimpse of a new face. This is Imai, a 16-year-old with a buzz cut and a grin that borders on mania. He's a wild card in the Chiba scene. Kaname shouts over the wind, Tatsuya, I need you to promise me something. No matter what, don't start a fight where we're going. Tatsuya realizes that Kaname is looking out for him. It would be a giant pain if a parolee got arrested. Kaname shares a bit of his philosophy. In his eyes, these people are neither good nor bad. They just are. As long as humans have animal instincts, their existence is inevitable. They arrive at the Young Bowling Center. It's a massive complex illuminated by a giant bowling pin, and the parking lot is filled with delinquents and customized bikes. It's a world outside the normal laws. Tatsuya is genuinely awestruck. What is this place? It's huge, and there are so many people. He looks like a kid in a candy store, if the candy store was filled with gang members. He can't stop grinning. So this is Chiba, huh? Chiba's amazing. Kaname asks if he's mocking the city, but Tatsuya is actually impressed by the sheer scale of the delinquent culture here. Looking around, Tatsuya sees dozens of different groups, all congregating in one place. He's amazed they aren't all at each other's throats. Is this some kind of alliance? No, that ain't it. Kaname corrects him. It's not about being allies. It's about something much more practical. The rules here are absolute. As long as you're on the premises of the bowling alley, fighting is strictly forbidden. It's a neutral ground enforced by tradition. Tatsuya realizes why he had to promise to keep his nose clean. It's a difficult law to uphold for guys like them, but it's the only way this many egos can coexist. Kaname explains that for the locals, this hierarchy is second nature. It's a tradition inherited from their predecessors, and respect for the system is paramount. In this world, the social order is everything. There are 4 primary gangs that control the areas surrounding West Chiba: Folly Wolf, Kalahito, SID, and Ashura. Each has its own identity and territory. This bowling alley wasn't always so quiet. Years ago, it served as a brutal battleground in a massive war between all 4 gangs, a dark chapter in Chiba's history that claimed many lives. The bloodshed only stopped when the police intervened, forcing the rival teams into a desperate non-aggression pact. It's a fragile peace held together by strict rules. But in a place like this, old grudges never truly fade. At the Young Bowling Center, the air is thick with a tension you can almost taste. Even though several generations have passed, the peace between the rival gangs is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Abe Kaname looks down, his voice lowering as he explains that these strict rules aren't just for show. They exist for one purpose: to prevent another bloodbath like the one that happened before. In the delinquent world, you'll often find strange codes of conduct. Some gangs forbid women, others ban drugs. These aren't attempts to be virtuous. They're the scars of past tragedies. Like a dead insect on the pavement, life here is fragile, and those who ignore the lessons of the past are doomed to repeat them. Iguchi Tatsuya, with his hands casually behind his head, looks up at the towering neon bowling pin and asks the obvious question. Just out of curiosity, what happens if you break the rules? Kaname takes a slow drag of his cigarette and explains that usually your own gang would be the ones to dish out the punishment. Tatsuya isn't amused. Don't gimme that look. I'm on parole, remember? He's trying to stay clean, but the world keeps pulling him back in. Although, Kaname adds, looking up at the night sky, these days it's not just the fear of punishment that keeps everyone in line. It's thanks to a certain someone. He leaves the name hanging, a mystery that lingers in the air. Meanwhile, back at the Yakiniku Min Min, the atmosphere is much quieter but no less tense. Auntie is calling out for her nephew, wondering where Tat-chan has disappeared to. She checks the shop and then heads to the back, but the boy is nowhere to be seen. She turns to Pops, her face filled with motherly concern. He's not at his room. Where could he have gone at this hour? Pops remains silent, his stoic face betraying nothing as he continues his work. Auntie clutches her hands together, a sudden thought crossing her mind. Maybe he's with Kaname-chan. She remembers last week when Tatsuya came home looking battered and bruised, his shirt torn and bloodied. But seeing him and Kaname sitting together at the shop today had actually put her mind at ease. It looked like the start of a real friendship. Annie knows Tatsuya has been through hell. He started working the moment he was released, and she understands his need to occasionally get out and spread his wings a little bit. But Pops, ever the realist, breaks the silence with a somber reminder. Tatsuya isn't just a normal teenager exploring a new city. He's still on parole. One wrong move, one bad influence, and he's back behind bars. Back at the bowling center, the piece Kine mentioned is put on full display. As soon as he walks through the door, the room erupts. Hello, Kaname-kun. Abe-san. Hello. It's like a king entering his court. Delinquents from all over bow their heads and offer respectful greetings as the two walk through. Tatsuya, standing in the middle of all, looks completely out of his element, sweating under the collective gaze of the crowd. Tatsuya can't help but poke fun at his new acquaintance. Hey, Kaname, you're a total celebrity. Kaname isn't amused by the sarcasm. You asshole, you're totally fucking with me, aren't you? He snaps back. Kaname eventually heads off to the toilet, leaving Tatsuya to lean against the wall and grumble about being invited just to witness a pompous jerk show off. But the silence is short-lived. Someone else has noticed him. Suddenly, Tatsuya feels a gaze so intense it's like a physical weight. Within the confines of these harsh street laws, there exist even harsher, more personal codes of conduct. One of those codes is loyalty. And there he is, Keiji Imai. The 16-year-old delinquent with a wild, wide-eyed look gets right in Tatsuya's personal space. What's your relationship with Kaname-kun? He demands, his face twisted into a menacing grin. Tatsuya stares back, his expression turning cold. In this world, there's a kind of freedom that is both violent and strangely comfortable, if you know how to handle the pressure. Keiji is practically foaming at the mouth, screaming his question again. Tatsuya, however, seems completely unbothered, calmly reaching for his lighter as if Keiji was just part of the furniture. You listening to me? Keiji roars. Keiji gets right in his face, his eyes bulging with fury. I said, what's your relationship with Kaname-kun? The air between them is about to explode. Tatsuya just blinks, the smoke from his cigarette drifting between them. The other delinquents in the area start to take notice, their own conversations dying down. What? Is it a fight? Someone whispers. It's Imai again. Another adds, knowing the kid's reputation for being a loose cannon. Tatsuya continues his silent treatment, the click of his lighter the only sound between them. Keiji's face is inches from his jaw clenched so tight it looks like it might crack. He's never been ignored like this before. Finally, Tatsuya looks up and flashes a mocking, toothy grin. "Oh, you were talking to me?" he asks, his voice dripping with insincerity. This blatant disrespect is the last straw, pushing Keiji's already fragile temper to the absolute boiling point. Tatsuya lazily explains that he and Kaname are recent acquaintances, offering a half-hearted apology that only fuels the fire. "My mind was elsewhere, sorry." But Keiji isn't interested in excuses. His eyes are locked on Tatsuya's collar, looking for any reason to finally snap and drag this outsider into the real Chiba. Imai grabs Tatsuya by the collar, his patience finally snapping. But Tatsuya just smirks, reminding the kid that fighting is strictly off-limits in this establishment. He's playing it cool, but you can see the irritation building behind his eyes. "Whoa there. I thought fighting was forbidden here." Tatsuya mocks. "Keiji isn't having it. I ain't buying that bullshit you're spouting. Come with me." Keiji isn't listening to logic. He screams right in Tatsuya's face, telling him that once they take one step outside, all the rules are off. Tatsuya's expression shifts to a mix of confusion and rising heat as Keiji demands to know what they're doing. Suddenly, a familiar voice booms from behind them. It's Abe Kaname. He towers over the two of them like a giant, his presence alone enough to silence the entire hallway. Tatsuya leans back against the wall, while Keiji freezes mid-action, his bravado instantly evaporating. Kaname looks down at Keiji, his voice dripping with a mix of fury and disappointment. "Keiji, what the hell are you doing to my friend?" For Keiji, this is the worst possible outcome. Without another word, Kaname slams Keiji into the floor. The short-fused kid is instantly humbled, face down on the tiles while Kaname squats over him, demanding to know how many times he has to repeat the rules. Keiji can only stutter out an apology as his idol looks down on him in disgust. Tatsuya watches silently as Kaname delivers a harsh ultimatum. Follow the rules, or forget about ever joining Kurohito. Keiji, still grumbling while rubbing his head, claims he doesn't care about joining any gang, though the sweat on his face tells a different story. Kaname just sighs, exhausted by the kid's stubbornness. Kaname's expression turns even colder. If Keiji doesn't want to listen, then he doesn't deserve the respect that comes with it. "That ring I gave you, give it back now." He reaches for Keiji's hand, ready to take back the symbol of their bond. That changes everything. Keiji's tough guy act completely evaporates as he drops to his knees, begging for mercy. To him, that ring is everything. It's his connection to the man he idolizes above all others. Please, anything but that," he cries. "Don't just apologize to me," Kaname growls, pointing a finger at his trembling underling. "Apologize to Tatsuya." He's making it clear that an insult to his friend is an insult to him. Keiji can only squeak out an eek in response. Keiji bows so deeply his forehead almost touches the floor, muttering a forced, "I am very sorry." Tatsuya stares at him, unimpressed, as he catches a glimpse of the kid's teeth-gritted rage. This apology is being given under duress, and both of them know it. Tatsuya, wanting to end the drama, just gives a dismissive wave and a small, fake smile. "Don't worry about it. I'm not angry or anything." "All right, then go play over there." He watches as Keiji slinks away, his pride in tatters. Kaname turns to Tatsuya, his tone much softer now that the kid is gone. "Sorry you had to go through all that." Tatsuya just laughs it off, lighting another cigarette and acting like the whole thing was just a minor distraction. "I ain't no tang." But once they're alone, Tatsuya asks what the deal is with that kid. What's that guy's problem anyway? He was pissed as hell. He's surprised by Kaname's calm adherence to the rules. "Wow, does this mean you've turned over a new leaf?" he teases. Kaname just grumbles back. "Don't be an idiot. I'm just obeying the rules of this place." Kaname explains that the kid's name is Imai Keiji, and he's only 16. He's been following Kaname around since middle school and is notorious back home for having a short fuse. He's better now than he used to be, but he's still a handful and a total idiot. Despite the trouble Keiji causes, Kaname can't help but respect the kid's determination. but at least he's got guts and spirit. He says, his gaze softening as he looks toward where Keiji vanished. Guts and spirit, huh? Tatsuya muses, a smirk playing on his lips. Kaname then realizes it's time for his team meeting. Oh crap, it's time for the team meeting. Sorry, Tatsuya, but you're going to have to entertain yourself for a bit. Tatsuya just nods and heads off toward the restrooms. The bowling alley bathroom is exactly what you'd expect. Walls covered from floor to ceiling in graffiti, gang signs, and obscene drawings. Tatsuya walks in, alone with his thoughts and the smell of stale cigarettes. He tries to light a cigarette, humming a small tune to himself. But as he clicks the lighter over and over, his hand begins to tremble. It's not fear. It's a boiling, suppressed rage that's finally starting to leak out after being held back for so long. Flick, flick. The lighter fails to catch. The frustration reaches a breaking point. Tatsuya loses his cool, slamming the lighter against the sink with enough force to send it flying. The mad dog is desperate for a release, and the silence of the bathroom is only making it worse. He looks down at his shaking hand, his jaw tight as he mutters an insult at Keiji. The humiliation of being grabbed by a cocksucking little snot goblin and being unable to retaliate because of his parole is eating him alive. Sweat pours down Tatsuya's face as he stares at himself in the mirror, his eyes wide and bloodshot. I should have hit him while I had the chance. The urge to fight is so strong, it's almost a physical pain, a hunger that he's been trying to starve for months. Tatsuya starts clawing at the graffiti-covered walls, his mind spiraling into a violent haze. Goddamn, I think I'm losing my mind or some shit. Phew, I want to hit someone. The peaceful life he's been forced to lead feels more like a prison than the one he just left. He looks at the bizarre and disgusting drawings on the stall doors, his disgust boiling over. Who the fuck's gonna jack off to this shit? With a roar, he kicks the door open, the sound echoing through the empty, tiled room as he tries to vent even a fraction of his rage. Eventually, Tatsuya leans by the open window, the cool night air hitting his face as he smokes. See, I seriously want to fuck somebody up. Kaname should have hit that kid a lot more. The click of his lighter is the only thing grounding him back to reality. Tatsuya's eyes narrow as he contemplates the non-aggression pact. I mean, who the fuck do these people think they're kidding? I'm on parole anyway. I can't fight even if I wanted to. Suddenly, he hears a voice behind him. You want to fight? His gaze snaps toward the sound, the mad dog instantly alert. Keiji Imai stands alone against a group of 4 older delinquents. They look down on him, mocking his sudden confrontation. What the fuck was that? The leader spits out, completely caught off guard by the kid's presence. They have no idea what's coming. From the safety of the bushes, Tatsuya Iguchi watches the scene unfold with a predatory grin. He recognizes Keiji and realizes he's stumbled onto something interesting. Well, look what we have here, he mutters to himself, the mad dog enjoying the sight of an impending clash. The night hangs heavy over the mammoth pachinko parlor, but the real game is being played in the dark lot outside. The bright neon signs are just a backdrop for the violence about to erupt. The 4 delinquents surround Keiji, confident in their numbers. We're far enough away from the bowling alley. No one will get in our way here, they boast. They laugh in Keiji's face, asking if he really wants to fight them that badly. Keiji just stares back, his silence more threatening than their shouts. Tatsuya stays hidden, his eyes fixed on the group. He hears the leader tell his friends to do him a favor and put Keiji in the hospital for at least a year. Tatsuya's smirk widens. He's seen this 4-on-1 dynamic before, and it rarely goes the way the majority expects. As the tension builds, Tatsuya starts to wonder about the motivation behind the fight. Actually, why are they fighting anyway, he thinks. He knows Keiji is loyal to Kaname, but what did these guys do to draw the kid's wrath? He waits for the silhouettes to clash. The leader of the delinquents crosses his arms, looking bored. Who are you with? He demands, wanting to know which gang would be stupid enough to send a single 16-year-old to face them. Keiji doesn't flinch. Keiji's voice is steady as he delivers his answer. The Kaname gang. Tatsuya, watching from the bushes, starts to sweat. He realizes how ridiculous that sounds to an outsider. A black cat slinks by, sensing the sudden spike in bloodlust in the air. Tatsuya and the delinquents can only stare in disbelief at the kid's answer. The group erupts into hysterical laughter. The Kaname gang. The fuck is that? You mean the Ape Kaname fan club? They think it's the funniest thing they've heard all year, completely unaware that they've just sealed their fate by mocking Keiji's idol. They continue to mock Kaname, calling him a stalker and saying how lame it is for the vice head of Kyohito to have a kid like Keiji following him around. Tatsuya, despite himself, has to agree. Man, that's so lame. He thinks, watching Keiji clutch the ring Kaname gave him. The kid's eyes are starting to change. The leader of the group leans in, his smile cruel. For now on your ATM. Okay. Sounds better than just bullying you, right? Tatsuya, hidden in the shadows, is getting impatient with the kid's restraint. Don't let him off that easy. Fucking kill his ass, he mutters under his breath. Keiji finally snaps, but he doesn't scream or roar. He lets out a high-pitched, manic laugh that chills the air. He's found his reason to stop being nice and let the monster out. In a blur of motion, Keiji pulls out a telescopic baton. The metal clicks into place, a sound as sharp as a predator's teeth. Even the black cat is startled by the sudden transformation of the boy into a dealer of pain. Keiji's eyes wide, locked onto his target. Without a moment's hesitation, Keiji swings. The baton connects with the leader's temple with a sickening crack. Blood sprays into the air, and Tatsuya watches from the sidelines as the first man goes down. Tatsuya is already lighting up another cigarette, enjoying the show. The leader's eyes roll back as he gasps out a final GUH. The shock of the sudden, brutal violence is visible on his face as the impact sends blood flying. Keiji's speed and precision are terrifying. Keiji doesn't stop. He brings the baton down again, his target letting out an agonizing gua. The other delinquents can only stutter in disbelief. Huh, wah. They realize too late that they weren't fighting a boy, but a weapon. Tatsuya watches from the bushes, his own adrenaline spiking. He's impressed by the kid's preparation. What are they, stupid? He's all by himself. Of course he's carrying some kind of weapon, he thinks. Keiji is already moving on to the next target, his eyes wild with focus. Hey, are you okay? One of the survivors screams to his fallen leader. One of the guys tries to swing at Keiji, but the kid is too fast. He ducks the punch with ease, his body moving with the fluid grace of someone who spends every day in a scrap. The baton is already poised for the counterattack. Keiji counters with a brutal strike to the man's eye. KUH, the guy groans as his world turns to static. Keiji's focus is absolute, his movements a blur of calculated violence. He's not just fighting, he's dismantling them. Tatsuya watches as Keiji systematically takes down the rest of the group. Not bad. He knows how to use that thing. Got no hesitation. He sees a bit of himself in the kid. The same disregard for safety, the same hunger for the win. Meanwhile, the survivors are panicking, trying to get Keiji from behind, but they're already outmatched. Back inside the bowling alley, the crowd is starting to thin out. Abe Kaname, finished with his business, begins looking for his guest. He stops a couple of underlings to ask where Tatsuya went. Hey, he calls out, his face unreadable. Ah, Kaname-kun. Hello. They respond, eager to please. Kaname's expression is stern as he describes Tatsuya. Have you seen the guy I was with before? Black hair. One of the guys points toward the back. I think I saw him near the toilets a while ago. Thanks, Kaname mutters, heading that way. Another delinquent approaches Kaname, looking worried. By the way, Kaname-kun, I heard Imai's fighting someone again. Kaname's jaw drops in frustration. What? Again? He's already exhausted from dealing with the kid's temper. Why is he always like that? The other guy asks. Kaname can only respond with a heavy silence. Right now, he's still not a member of Kyohito, so it's not a huge deal, but... Kaname looks around the empty arcade, his mind racing. He knows Keiji's pattern all too well. He's so nice he's gone full circle and become violent again. He mutters, the irony of Keiji's personality not lost on him. He knows he needs to find them before someone ends up dead. The night remains quiet outside the parlor. The Fever 777 graffiti, a silent witness to the carnage happening nearby. Shadowy figures watch from a distance, knowing that in West Chiba, the peace never lasts for long. The storm has already begun. Keiji is finally down, but he's taken a massive amount of punishment. The four delinquents are exhausted, breathing heavily as they look down at the kid they just brutalized. Seriously, he's too tough. One of them wheezes. He's even crazier than I heard. They've won the fight, but they've lost their sense of security. To them, Keiji is a fucking midget who simply doesn't know when to stop. Iguchi Tatsuya remains in the shadows, crouching down as the same black cat from before walks past him. He's been watching the whole thing, his expression unreadable as he absorbs the raw brutality of Chiba's youth. The peace of his parole feels further away than ever. Tatsuya's eyes are sharp as he stares at the retreating group from the darkness. "You idiots took way too long," he mutters, his voice dripping with the cold expertise of someone who knows exactly how a real fight should end. He's not impressed by their numbers. He's disgusted by their inefficiency. The older delinquents limp away, clutching their own injuries. "Shit, I need to get to a hospital." "Man, he cracked your head like an egg," one of them says to his friend. They try to laugh it off, claiming they at least got their exercise, but their voices are shaky. They're rattled by the kid who refused to stay down. Tatsuya's silhouette is visible in the background as he watches them go. Tatsuya stands up and starts walking away, the cat still trailing behind him as he leaves the lot. He's seen enough to understand the stakes in this town. It's not just about strength or technique. It's about a specific kind of madness that refuses to acknowledge defeat. But the fight isn't over for Keiji. Even with a bloodied face and a body that should be screaming in pain, his hand trembles as it clenches around a jagged rock. Tatsuya stops and looks back, sensing the kid's lethal refusal to stay down. "I'll never forgive you," Keiji gasps out through the blood and sweat. Keiji drags himself up, his body a map of bruises and cuts, but his eyes are burning with a terrifying, singular purpose. "I'll never forgive anyone who talks shit about Kaname-kun." To him, loyalty isn't just a choice. It's a religion worth dying and killing for. He stands tall, a blood-soaked testament to fanaticism. Tatsuya stares at the kid, his own eyes narrowing as the final piece of the puzzle clicks into place. The realization of what truly drives the people in this city hits him. So that's what's going on, he thinks. In this world of monsters, he's just met a true believer. The Mad Dog has found a kindred spirit in the worst possible way. The Chiba delinquents aren't just thieves, they're arrogant. One of them, his face twisted in a sneer, clutches the stolen ring tightly. He vows never to forgive anyone who crosses them, oblivious to the fact that his luck is about to run out. They laugh as they mock the value of the jewelry, unaware that Iguchi Tatsuya is already closing in. With a gaze that could pierce steel, the legendary Mad Dog prepares to show them exactly who they've messed with. The leader of the group continues his taunts, making fun of how sensitive his victims are. He thinks he's in control, but he's just poking a sleeping monster. Tatsuya's patience is finally at its breaking point. The battle erupts in an instant. Tatsuya charges forward like a force of nature, ready to settle the score. These Chiba thugs are about to learn a painful lesson. Some people are better left alone. Elsewhere, inside a local bathroom, the gravity of the situation begins to dawn on the Killahito members. Abe Kaname stands tall, a towel around his neck, as he discusses the chaos with a fellow member. They realize that neither Tatsuya nor Keiji are anywhere to be found. The tension in the room is palpable as they worry about the fallout. If their impulsive actions draw the police, the entire gang will be in jeopardy. "What do you intend to do about Imai?" the other member asks, his voice laced with concern. They know there's one person who won't tolerate this mess, the boss. Tanzawa Atsushi, the head of Killahito, looms like a shadow over their conversation. If he finds out, the consequences won't be pretty. The fear of Atsushi, known as a Kan, is enough to silence any argument. Kaname knows that despite Tatsuya's strength, he's a liability if he keeps drawing heat from the authorities. The power structure of Kihito is absolute, and nobody crosses the boss. Back at the site of the clash, the rain begins to pour, turning the pavement into a muddy wasteland. The battle has left the scene in ruins, with broken bodies scattered across the empty lot. Eguchi Tatsuya stands alone amidst the wreckage, his expression unreadable as the water washes the blood from his hands. Even a stray black cat watches him from the shadows, sensing the cold intensity of a man who has truly snapped. He reflects on the cost of this victory. He got the ring back, but his fragile hope for a peaceful life is fading. He realizes that despite his best efforts, the violence of his past will always find a way back in. With a weary sigh, Tatsuya walks away into the storm, the black cat following him like a silent witness to his descent back into chaos. It feels as though his kindness has finally come full circle, leaving only violence behind. But before the victory, there was a moment of utter disgrace. The Chiba gang had Tatsuya cornered, their numbers overwhelming him. They didn't just fight him, they toyed with him, treating him like a common street rat. They looted his pockets, laughing when they found only loose change and a stash of condoms. Eat shit, they sneered, reveling in the humiliation of a man they thought was a legend. To them, he was nothing more than a joke. Then they saw the ring on his finger, the prize they had been looking for. It was the last piece of dignity Tatsuya had, and they were determined to take that too. As he lay on the ground, bloodied and beaten, the thugs continued their assault. They didn't just want the ring. They wanted to break him completely, enjoying every second of his suffering. They pinned him to the dirt, mocking his pleas for mercy. "Let me go," Tatsuya cried out, but his words were met only with more laughter. They relished the sight of the mighty mad dog reduced to such a state. One of them held up the ring like a trophy, while Tatsuya crawled desperately through the mud. "Give it back," he screamed, his hands reaching out for the only thing he had promised to protect. They stomped on his head, his face grinding into the pavement as blood sprayed into the rain. It was a brutal, systematic attempt to erase the man he was trying to become. Kicked and battered, Tatsuya's resistance seemed to fail. The Chiba thugs laughed as they prepared to leave him behind, satisfied that they had truly destroyed the legend of Komi. In a moment of heartbreaking vulnerability, Tatsuya Eguchi bowed his head to the dirt. "Please, give it back," he begged, his voice a whisper through the blood. He was willing to cast aside all pride just to keep his word. "That ring means everything to me," he pleaded, his bloody face a mask of desperation. For Kigo, for the promise he made, he was willing to endure any amount of humiliation. But his pleas only fell on deaf ears. This wasn't the first time he'd faced such overwhelming odds. Flashbacks to his past show a cycle of violence where groups of thugs would constantly target him, trying to tear him down just to prove their own strength. From his school days to the gritty streets of Chiba, Tatsuya has always been the one force to take the hits. He's been beaten and broken more times than he can count, but every scar has only served to sharpen the blade of his hidden fury. As he lies face down in the rain, the trauma of the past fuels a new kind of resolution. They think they've broken his spirit, but they've only unleashed the mad dog from its cage. And now, it's time for him to look his tormentors in the eye. Eguchi Tatsuya stares down his opponents, his eyes as cold as the rain that's beginning to fall. In the background, his new friend Kigo looks on, trapped by 3 Chiba delinquents who think they've caught an easy prey. Kigo sits helplessly on the ground, looking up at Tatsuya with a mixture of hope and fear. He's the reason Tatsuya is here, to get back a ring that symbolizes more than its weight in gold. Flashbacks of the Chiba gang's cruelty flicker through the air. They mocked Kigo, laughed at his weakness, and delighted in messing with someone they deemed beneath them. Little did they know, their victim was under the protection of the mad dog. But the ring's history goes deeper than this single conflict. Years ago, a younger Abe Kaname, sporting a defiant pompadour, held that very same ring. He used it to teach the boys a harsh lesson about respect and the weight of their choices. To a young Kaname, the ring was a test. He closed his fist around it, telling Kigo it would only truly be his once he managed to get his act together. It was a moment that defined their bond and the hierarchy of the streets. Eventually, Kaname returned the ring to a young Kigo, cementing a promise that would last for years. In the background, posters of Kaname's notoriety, titled I.Idol, reveal his growing legend. The ring was never just jewelry. It was a badge of respect from a man like Abe Kaname. Back in the present, the rain washes over the broken body of the Chiba gang leader. The mad dog has been unleashed, and the asphalt is now a testament to the absolute power Tatsuya possesses when he stops holding back. Blood and rainwater pool around the leader's face as he gasps for air. In his dazed state, he mutters a pathetic apology to Kaname-kun, finally realizing that he has violated the territory of a monster he should never have challenged. Tatsuya stands tall in the pouring rain, his figure a solitary silhouette against the urban decay. The silence of the night is only broken by the rhythmic splashing of the storm on the concrete. A haunting image of a paper crane flickers in Tatsuya's mind, a reminder of the origami hell he survived in juvie. He remembers how these punks laughed when he got on his knees earlier, begging them for the ring to avoid a fight that would send him back to that nightmare. They mistook his desperate restraint for cowardice, and now they are paying the price in blood. Tatsuya grips his hair, the internal struggle still raging within him. Being able to indulge your desires is one side of the coin, but the other side is an everlasting hell, one he is currently hurtling toward. In the shadows, Ishido watches through his rain-flecked glasses. He knows that those who can turn back from the brink of being out are few and far between. Meanwhile, the delinquents realize they are being watched by someone who knows exactly what Tatsuya is capable of. Tatsuya turns to face the remnants of the Chiba gang. His blackout t-shirt is soaked through, but he stands immovable as a mountain in the storm. The hierarchy of power is about to be violently re-established. A close-up reveals Tatsuya's vacant gaze, stripped of all humanity. This is the version of himself he tried so hard to cage, now set loose on the streets of West Chiba. The leader of the Chiba delinquents, scar throbbing in the cold, tries to reclaim his bravado. "Who the fuck are you?" he screams into the rain, his men standing uncertainly behind him. Tatsuya merely bows his head, the silence before the next strike. Tatsuya doesn't answer with words. He spits out a mouthful of blood and rainwater, his eyes locking onto his target. The gang members are unnerved by his silence, whispering to each other about the creep who won't even talk as he prepares to dismantle them. The violence is absolute. Tatsuya launches himself forward, a fist cracking against the leader's jaw with a force that sends blood flying into the rain. He moves with a terrifying, calculated speed, his strikes fueled by weeks of suppressed rage. He follows up with another devastating blow, a hook that nearly lifts the leader off his feet. Tatsuya isn't just winning a fight. He's erasing every insult and humiliation he endured while trying to be good. The impact is visceral. Tatsuya stomps on his opponent with zero hesitation, the water splashing high into the air. He is a predator in his natural habitat, showing no mercy for those who mistook his restraint for weakness. The gang members can only watch in horror as Tatsuya walks through them like a ghost. Their leader lies broken on the ground, and their initial arrogance has completely evaporated in the face of such raw, unbridled power. Shock and awe ripple through the delinquents as Tatsuya stands amongst them, his hair tied back, looking like a demon spawned from the storm. They finally understand who they've been messing with. The mad dog of Komi has come to Chiba. The rain continues to drench the city, falling over the bowling center and the surrounding apartment buildings, a silent witness to the carnage in the alleyway. The neon signs of West Chiba flicker, illuminating a world that most people never see. The clouds remain thick and oppressive, reflecting the mood of a night where boundaries were crossed and promises were kept with blood. The city sleeps, unaware of the storm that just passed through its streets. The vast, star-speckled sky offers a moment of hollow peace, a temporary reprieve before the reality of the night catches up. It is the deceptive calm after the storm, where the only thing louder than the rain is the weight of the consequences Tatsuya has just invited. On the ground, the Chiba gang's leader is nothing more than a broken heap in the rain, his spirit completely shattered. As his dazed gasps fill the silence, the surge of the fight begins to subside, leaving behind only the cold, hard truth of the devastation he and Tatsuya have both endured. After the brutal exchange, the adrenaline begins to fade, replaced by a sharp, throbbing pain. One of his opponents lies broken on the ground, muttering curses as he clutches his injuries. For Tatsuya, this wasn't just a fight. It was a price he had to pay for a promise. He looks down at his hand, realizing just how much damage he's done to his enemies and to himself. His finger is swollen and bruised, looking, as he bluntly puts it, like a giant turd. It's a grotesque reminder of the violence he's tried so hard to escape. But in the palm of his hand lies the prize, the ring. Despite the blood and the bruises, Tatsuya managed to retrieve it. This small piece of metal is the reason he risked everything tonight. Meanwhile, under the city lights, Abe Kaname sits on his bike, a cigarette between his lips. The night is cool, but the atmosphere is heavy with the aftermath of the clash. He's the kind of guy who knows the streets of Chiba like the back of his hand. Kaname is worried. He knows Tatsuya is new to this territory and prone to trouble. Damn it. Where the hell did Tatsuya run off to, he mutters, blowing a cloud of smoke into the night air. He knows Imai Kenji is missing as well. The city skyline looms in the distance, centered around the young bowling alley, the neutral ground where the non-aggression pact is supposed to keep the peace. Kaname contemplates heading home, but the thought of Tatsuya wandering alone in foreign territory keeps him on edge. Just as he's about to leave, something catches his eye. Tatsuya appears out of the shadows, a wide, almost manic grin on his face. Kaname is taken aback by the sight of him. "What the hell happened to your face?" he exclaims, seeing the blood and scratches marking Tatsuya's features. Tatsuya brushes it off with a casual "shut up," but Kaname is serious. He reminds Tatsuya about the non-aggression pact, a delicate balance that keeps Chiba from erupting into total war. Even more concerning is Tatsuya's parole. Getting into a fight is the quickest way back behind bars. Tatsuya lights a cigarette, acting as though nothing is wrong. He claims no one knows who he is anyway, but Kaname isn't convinced. He notices Tatsuya's torn and battered knuckles. "Who the hell did you fight?" Kaname asks, knowing that fighting barehanded is a sign of either desperation or pure madness. Kaname boasts about his own philosophy. True men fight barehanded, you know? But Tatsuya just scoffs, telling him to save it for his groupies. The tension breaks momentarily as Kaname asks about that punk Imai, unaware of the trouble the younger boy has been in. Tatsuya's gaze turns serious as he looks at the ring again. Kaname is curious. He can't understand why Tatsuya is so obsessed with such a seemingly worthless piece of jewelry. He watches Tatsuya closely, try to gauge the man behind the mad dog reputation. They stand among the parked cars and motorcycles of Chiba's delinquent elite. In their world, respect is a currency that's hard to earn and even harder to keep. Every man wants to be respected, but few understand the burden that comes with it. Kaname laughs, thinking the ring is a grand symbol of his own authority. To him, the fact that Kenji values it so much is proof of the respect he commands. Tatsuya just listens, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips as he takes another drag of his cigarette. Then comes the punchline. Kaname leans in and confesses a secret. He actually found that precious ring in a garbage dump near his house. He told Kenji it was worth a fortune just to mess with him. Tatsuya is stunned, realizing that all this blood was spilled over a piece of trash. But Kaname just laughs it off, telling Tatsuya to hop on the bike. It's time to get out of there. The next day, the sun shines brightly over West Chiba. The violence of the previous night seems a world away, hidden behind the mundane facade of city life and utility poles. At the Min Min restaurant, things are getting weird. Imai Kenji and Abe Kaname have shown up to bother Tatsuya while he's working, and for some reason, they've brought animals that seem to speak their thoughts. A puppy woofs about Tatsuya getting the ring back, while a black cat yaws in agreement. Tatsuya just tells them to shut up, his face flushed with annoyance. It's a bizarre scene in the middle of a shift. Tatsuya is busy cleaning grills, surrounded by smoke and heat, while Kaname and Kenji treat the restaurant like their personal hangout. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that my new friends here are going to get me into worlds of trouble from now on, Tatsuya thinks, already regretting his choices. The days continue with a relentless rhythm. The city heat is oppressive, and the sound of cicadas fills the air, marking the height of summer in Chiba. In the backyard of a quiet neighborhood, Kenji is at his limit. He screams in exhaustion, unable to keep up with the intense training regimen. For these dropouts, physical strength is the only thing they can rely on. Kaname, on the other hand, is in his element. He flexes his massive chest and arms, boasting about getting a hot body to impress the ladies at the beach or the pool. He looks like he's putting everything he is into a single flex, much to the amusement of the others. The workout session turns into a muscle measuring contest. They trade compliments about deltoids and pectorals, acting like professional bodybuilders instead of street thugs. Kenji watches them, disgusted by their gross bromance, but Tatsuya just stays focused on the work. Tatsuya is a machine. He powers through set after set, his lean muscles glistening with sweat. When Kaname asks how he can be so good at lifting heavy stuff, Tatsuya reveals a grim truth. In Juvie, they make you do 200 push-ups every single day as part of the routine. A close-up of Tatsuya's face shows a hardened expression. He never had a problem with the physical toll of Juvie. In fact, he's always liked working out. But he knows better than anyone that life behind those walls was no pleasure cruise. It was a place designed to break you. Memories of the detention center flood back. The cold, impersonal buildings and the bars that define your existence. Tatsuya was a problem child even there, but he managed to carve out a place for himself among the other inmates. However, there was one punishment he could never handle: solitary confinement. The solitary cell is a small, suffocating room where time loses all meaning. It was here that they assigned him the most soul-crushing task imaginable: folding 3,000 paper cranes. For a man of action like Tatsuya, this slow, meticulous task was a descent into despair. He's so clumsy he can't even tie his own shoelaces, and a sheer monotony was enough to drive him to the brink of madness. Tatsuya continues his haunting narration of the ordeal. After an hour in that cell, he hadn't even finished a single crane. With nowhere to run and no one to talk to, all he could do was fold. By the end of the first day, he'd only managed 5. The frustration was a silent, mounting pressure within the suffocating walls. Days blurred into a monotonous nightmare. By the 10th day, he was folding 30 cranes a day, but his mind was beginning to fracture. Between the isolation and his struggling memory, his fingers refused to move as he wanted. There were moments when he'd just blank out, losing all sense of time and self. One day, the instructors allowed him a brief walk outside, but the damage was already done. The voices of the guards seemed to calm him, but the reality was far grimmer. He had started talking to the paper cranes, his sanity slipping through the cracks of his isolation. On the 40th day, after folding roughly 2,600 cranes, Tatsuya finally reached his breaking point. The instructors, sensing his vulnerability, introduced different sizes of paper, a subtle mockery of his lack of dexterity and his mounting desperation. The final challenge was the most cruel: paper the size of a thumbnail. It was a test of endurance and patience that a mad dog like Tatsuya was never equipped to handle, pushing him further into the abyss. The frustration finally boiled over. He tried and tried, but his clumsy fingers failed him at every turn. Before he knew it, he was bashing his head against the cold, hard wall, the physical pain a welcome distraction from the mental torment. A month and a half and 3,000 cranes later, Tatsuya was finally allowed to leave solitary confinement. During those final days, the instructors kept a constant watch, fearing he might self-destruct. As he walked out, he saw the bloodstains on the wall, a grim map of his own descent into madness. He was genuinely frightened of his own clumsiness and what it had driven him to. To this day, the memory of that cell and those cranes haunts him. It's a trauma that dictates his every move in the outside world. He'll do anything, absolutely anything, to avoid going through that origami hell again. Back in the present, Tatsuya stands shirtless, a cigarette between his lips. The rain-like sweat on his skin is a far cry from the cold dampness of the cell. But the ghosts of Juvie are never far behind. He's trying to maintain his freedom, no matter the cost. Keiji Imai, always full of restless energy, suggests they go find some ladies to blow off some steam. But Abe Kaname has a different introduction in mind. He wants Tatsuya to meet someone who truly defines the power structure of West Chiba. The name carries weight. Tanzawa Atsushi, the 7th generation head of Kyohito. Tatsuya listens as Kaname explains the hierarchy, his expression unreadable as he learns about the man who rules this territory with an iron fist. Kaname warns that trespassing on their turf is a death sentence. Tatsuya, with a smirk, asks if the boss is really that amazing. He's curious about the man who commands such absolute respect and fear among the delinquents of Chiba. In the hierarchy of West Chiba, Tanzawa Atsushi is a legend. He's easily one of the top 5 strongest one-on-one fighters in the region, a man whose strength is matched only by his authority. The city skyline seems to reflect the cold, distant power he holds. The heat of the day is relentless, a scorcher, as they say. Tatsuya seems intrigued by the stories of the boss, his mad dog instincts quietly stirring as they discuss the fighters who dominate the streets. But the conversation is about to be cut short. The heavy atmosphere is interrupted by a familiar, stern figure. Ishido, Tatsuya's parole officer, approaches with a solemn walk. He isn't here for a casual visit, and his presence immediately shifts the mood from delinquent bravado to cold reality. Keiji, unaware of the man's identity, starts to talk back, but Tatsuya quickly intervenes. "Stop it. He's my parole officer, Ishido-san," he warns. Tatsuya knows that this man holds the keys to his cell, and any sign of disrespect could be his undoing. Ishido's gaze is cold and unwavering. Tatsuya tries to play it cool, noting that he didn't know they were supposed to meet today. Ishido claims he was just in the neighborhood, but his eyes tell a different story. He notes that Tatsuya hasn't dyed his hair and seems to be taking his job seriously, but the suspicion remains. Kaname and Keiji stand by, sensing the gravity of the encounter. Tatsuya insists he was serious about turning over a new leaf, while Kaname and Keiji try to fade into the background. Ishido listens, his face an unreadable mask of skepticism. He's seen many boys like Tatsuya promise change, only to fall back into their old ways. Ishido isn't alone. He's accompanied by police officers, their presence a stark reminder of the authority that Tatsuya is constantly trying to navigate. Ishido holds a fan with the words "all villains" on it, a subtle poke at the group he's confronting. The truth finally comes out. Ishido expresses his disappointment, revealing that he heard a report about a fight Tatsuya was involved in 2 weeks ago near an old pachinko parlor in the suburbs. Tatsuya and the others are caught off guard, their faces reflecting the shock of being found out so easily. Tatsuya stares back, his mind racing. The words "the police have received a report" echo in his head like a death knell. His fragile freedom is hanging by a thread, and the mad dog is once again cornered by the law. Meanwhile, at the Sanrue restaurant, the peace is shattered. Keiji Imai bursts in, shouting for Tatsuya's aunt. The mundane setting of the restaurant is a stark contrast to the life-altering news he's about to deliver. Auntie is confused, asking what's wrong. A frantic Keiji delivers the crushing news. Tatsuya-kun, he's been arrested by the police. Outside, a police car speeds through the streets, its siren a mourning wail for Tatsuya's short-lived freedom. Annie's world is turned upside down in an instant. Inside the police car, Tatsuya Iguchi sits in a heavy silence, his parole officer Ishido a grim reminder of the cage he's returning to. As the city lights flicker across the glass, he prepares himself for the cold reality of the West Chiba police station. The reflection in the window, shows a man cornered by the law, yet far from ready to surrender his spirit. While Tatsuya is hauled away, the engines of the underworld are already beginning to roar. In a darkened garage, gears click and lights flicker to life, the signature of a power that operates far outside the reach of the law. The world of Kilohito is in motion, and as the machine ignites, a much larger storm is about to break over the streets of Chiba. Abe Kaname sits on his bike, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He knows he needs to act quickly, or Tatsuya is going to be out for real, meaning a return to the nightmare of the correctional system. Meanwhile, inside the cold walls of the West Chiba police station, the pressure is already building. Tatsuya Gucci sits across from Ishido, his parole officer. The air in the interrogation room is thick with unspoken tension. "You need to take responsibility for your actions," Ishido says, his voice a low rumble. To a man on parole, these words are a direct threat to his freedom. Tatsuya remains silent, his gaze fixed on the table. He knows the game they're playing. One wrong word, one slip-up, and his life at Min Min is over. His expression is a mask of defiance, but beneath it, the memory of the paper cranes still lingers. Ishido lays down photos of the broken delinquents from the night before. "You know these guys, don't you?" he asks, searching for a flicker of recognition. "I'll ask you one more time. Maybe this time you'll actually tell the truth." Tatsuya stares at the faces of the men he dismantled, his eyes betraying nothing. "Nope, never seen him before," Tatsuya lies smoothly. But Ishido is a veteran. He knows a lie when he hears one. "Don't play dumb with me, you punk. I know you went to Young Bull that day. We have an eyewitness testimony placing you at the scene." The trap is closing, and Tatsuya's stoic facade is being pushed to its limit. As Tatsuya is led out of the station by police officers, Abe Kaname is there, watching from the sidewalk. His heart sinks as he sees his friend being escorted to a patrol car. He knows the stakes are higher than Tatsuya realizes. "You didn't do anything, right?" he shouts, trying to offer some desperate reassurance. Kaname's voice booms over the street noise. "You hear me? Just keep your mouth shut. I'll figure something out." Tatsuya looks away, the weight of the handcuffs a cold reminder of his past. He mutters a quiet denial to the officers, playing the part of the wrong guy until the very end. Meanwhile, the news of the arrest reaches the Sanrue restaurant. The sign above the door, "Charcoal Yakiniku Sanrue," usually a symbol of warmth and food, now feels like a tombstone for Tatsuya's short-lived freedom. The realization that this is all happening because he got back the ring for Keiji is a bitter pill to swallow. Inside, Keiji Imai is a mess of guilt and sweat. "That's right, so this is all my fault," he stammers, looking down in shame. Tatsuya's aunt, her face etched with worry, can barely process the news. She insists they need to go to the police and explain everything, but Keiji is paralyzed by fear and the rules of the gang world. "What are you talking about? We have to explain what happened." Annie shouts, her motherly instinct overriding any street code. But Keiji shakes his head frantically. Kaname-kun said things would only get worse if anyone talked to the police. The conflict between civilian justice and delinquent loyalty is tearing the room apart. Keiji tries to clarify the situation, his voice cracking. He went along voluntarily to be questioned. Auntie's eyes widen. "Wah, voluntarily? He hasn't been arrested?" The technicalities of the law offer a thin thread of hope, but Keiji knows that voluntary questioning is often just the beginning of the end. "Wait, aren't they the same thing?" he asks, his confusion mirroring his despair. Looking for a solution, Kaname and Keiji head to the Tanzawa junkyard, the industrial heart of Kilohito territory. The workshop, Tanzawa Motors, is a maze of scrap cars and motorcycles. As they enter, they're met with the rough talk of other gang members, discussing rumors and sizing up the new guys. It's a world where strength is the only currency. Abe Kaname stands tall amidst the wreckage, his presence commanding immediate respect. Even in this den of thieves, he is a force to be reckoned with. Other Kilohito members bow their heads or look away, acknowledging his rank. He's here for one reason, and he won't be denied. "Where's the boss?" Kaname demands, his eyes scanning the workshop. He needs Akan's permission to move the team, and he knows that without the head of Kirihito, Tatsuya is as good as gone. The air in the junkyard is thick with grease and the smell of impending conflict. The other members point toward the main workshop. Titanzawa stands in the workshop. One of them stammers, clearly intimidated by Kaname's intensity. "You two, stop farting around." Kaname growls at Keiji and his companion. Keiji is visibly shaken, muttering about how scary and tough Abe-san is, his bravado completely evaporated. They find a boss, Tanzawa Atsushi, Akan, inside the workshop. He's sitting calmly on a sofa, surrounded by bike parts. In a surreal moment of irony, the most dangerous man in West Chiba is occupied with something delicate. He's folding a paper crane. Kaname calls out to him, the name Akan, carrying a strange mix of friendship and fear. Akan doesn't even look up at first. "Hey, over here," he says, his voice calm despite the chaotic world outside. He's wearing a Total Chaos t-shirt, a perfect fit for his reputation. "Sorry, Kaname, but I don't have a lot of time left to finish this thing," he adds, referring to his project. Kaname approaches, his usual swagger replaced by a focused respect. "Nah, I just need to borrow your ear for a minute." Back outside the police station, Ishido stands with another officer, both smoking cigarettes. They discuss Tatsuya's behavior during the interrogation. He's not saying anything he doesn't have to, Ishido notes. He knows he's still only a suspect at this point, but sending a patrol car to his place was a bit too far. Ishido-san, you're not a cop anymore. The line between parole and police work is blurring. Ishido takes a long drag of his cigarette, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. He spent years watching boys like Tatsuya, and his gut tells him the kid is hiding something. He isn't interested in being a nice guy. He's interested in the truth, no matter how deep he has to dig to find it. The officers continue their discussion about the report. "It's one of the kid's parents who filed the report, right?" "Yes, but the kid himself wasn't happy about it. Pride is everything to a delinquent. If people found out they went crying to the police after getting hurt in a fight, they'd be a laughingstock. The complex code of the streets is something even the authorities have to factor into their investigation." They talk about the difficulty of the identification. It was too dark for the victim to ID Tatsuya with a picture, and there are 4 other suspects of the same height. The odds seem to be in Tatsuya's favor, but Ishido isn't convinced. He's a man who believes in the persistence of evidence, even when it's hidden in the shadows. "But he can pick him out of a lineup?" the other officer asks, skeptical. "That's what he said." Ishido replies, "The decision rests on a tomorrow that Tatsuya can't see yet." The mechanical nature of the station, the pipes and stairs, reflects the cold, unyielding system that has Tatsuya in its grip once more. Inside the holding cell, Tatsuya Iguchi sits in near total darkness. The bars of the small window cast long shadows across his face. Sucks for Iguchi, but he'll have to spend the night here. The officer's words echo in his mind. "We're doing the lineup tomorrow." This is the longest night of Tatsuya's life, a test of his resolve against the encroaching darkness. A close-up of Tatsuya's face shows a man truly on the edge. In the sweltering heat of the cell, his eyes burn with a cold, focused rage as the words of the officers echo in his mind. "We'll know if he's our guy tomorrow afternoon." He knows his fragile freedom rests on the shaky memory of a victim and Ishido's relentless pursuit. Coiled like a spring in the dark, the mad dog can only wait for the dawn of a day that could change everything. Back in the grease-stained silence of a junkyard, the high-stakes meeting reaches its climax. Tanzawa Atsushi listens impassively as Kaname finally lays his cards on the table. "I see. So basically, you want to use the team in order to save this Iguchi guy." Akan's gaze shifts between his mechanical work and the man asking for a favor that could jeopardize the entire gang. "Yeah," Kaname replies, bracing himself to pitch a desperate plan to the boss. Abe Kaname looks Akan straight in the eye, his voice firm and filled with conviction. "I want to make them drop the charges against him," he declares. For Kaname, this isn't just about saving a new recruit. It's about protecting one of their own from a system that never gives second chances. Akan listens, his head bowed as he considers the proposal. He acknowledges the terrifying influence of their gang. It's true that the moment anyone from West Chiba is targeted by us, they're out, meaning their lives would be effectively over. Hearing this, Kaname's face lights up with a grin, thinking he's finally won the boss over. Great, so then, I think it's a good plan, he says, relieved. But the relief is short-lived. The atmosphere in the workshop turns ice-cold as Akan looks up, his expression unreadable beneath his head wrap. No, I am sorry, Kaname, he mutters. The weight of those words hangs heavy in the air, a final judgment from the man who holds the fate of every Kihito member in his hands. Kaname stands frozen, the shock of the refusal etched onto his face. He had expected support, a show of force, but instead, he's met with a brick wall. But the answer is no. The chapter ends with this crushing reality. Despite everything Tatsuya did, the boss has decided to leave him to the mercy of the law. The mad dog is truly alone in the dark. Inside the Kihito hideout, the atmosphere is heavy. Abe Kaname, the powerful vice-head, stands before his leader. But the response he gets isn't what he hoped for. This isn't a team issue. It's a personal issue for you, Kaname. Tanzawa Atsushi, the enigmatic leader, remains cold. He points out that neither Iguchi Tatsuya nor Imai are members of their gang. In the world of Kihito, there is no obligation to save outsiders, regardless of the circumstances. Desperate to save his friend, Abe Kaname does the unthinkable for a man of his stature. He bows his head. He begs Tanzawa Atsushi to make an exception, even as Kigo watches on in silent shock. This isn't just business, it's personal. But Tanzawa Atsushi doesn't budge. He looks down at his vice-head with an icy gaze, reminding him that personal feelings have no place in gang business. Without Kihito's best interests at heart, there will be no permission. Meanwhile, at the West Chiba police station, Iguchi Tatsuya is facing a different kind of pressure. Locked in an interrogation room, he stares down a young officer, his eyes burning with defiance despite the handcuffs. The officer leans back, smugly lecturing Tatsuya. He claims that delinquents like him are built out of weakness, hiding behind their gangs because they're too afraid to stand on their own 2 feet. The lecture continues, the officer's voice dripping with contempt. He calls Tatsuya a coward, insisting that once he's all alone, the reality of his own insignificance will finally set in. But instead of being intimidated, Iguchi Tatsuya starts to laugh. It's a low, mocking sound that catches the officer off guard. Tatsuya wipes a tear from his eye, clearly finding the officer's logic hilarious. Tatsuya leans in, a predatory grin spreading across his face. He flips the officer's own logic against him. Once you quit the force, officer, what can you do all by yourself? The question hangs heavy in the air. The interrogation room erupts with Tatsuya's boisterous laughter. The young officer loses his cool, shouting at him to watch his language. But it's clear who's really in control of this mental chess match. Back at the scrapyard, the moon hangs high over the warehouse. Inside, Tanzawa Atsushi tells Kaname to stop the display and raise his head. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. Abe Kaname's fist trembles with suppressed rage and humiliation. He finally gives in, muttering that he'll stop asking. But the fire inside him hasn't gone out. It's just being redirected. Suddenly, Kaname lashes out, his fist slamming into a support beam with a deafening crack. The raw power and frustration behind the blow leave Tanzawa and Kigo stunned. He can't keep this secret any longer. Tanzawa and Kigo watch in silence as Kaname gathers his resolve. He looks up, his expression more serious than they've ever seen it. This doesn't leave this room, he warns. I actually fought Iguchi. The confession hangs in the air like a lightning bolt. Kaname admits the truth that he's been hiding behind his pride. And I lost. The words hit Kigo and Tanzawa with the force of a physical blow. The silence that follows is deafening. Kigo is speechless, unable to process the idea of the monstrous Abe Kaname losing to anyone, let alone an outsider like Tatsuya. Even the air in the garage feels still. Tanzawa Atsushi breaks the silence with a chirp of genuine surprise. My, is that so? Kigo can only stare in disbelief, sweat beating on his forehead as the weight of the revelation sinks in. Tanzawa Atsushi's playful side comes out as he teases his vice head, drawing out his name in a sing-song voice. But behind the feminine features and mocking tone, there's a calculating mind evaluating this new mad dog. Abe Kaname doesn't care about the teasing. He looks Tanzawa in the eye, his resolve unshakable. He admits he can't just let a monster like Iguchi Tatsuya slip through their fingers. The potential is too great to ignore. Tanzawa Atsushi cups his face with a mischievous smile. I need to take responsibility for the team, don't I? He chirps. It seems Kaname's confession has finally piqued the leader's interest. Kigo is skeptical, suspecting that Kaname might be exaggerating just to get his way. He knows Kaname is a terrible liar, and the idea of him losing seems impossible. But Tanzawa is already 3 steps ahead. Tanzawa Atsushi concedes that even if Kaname is lying, he knows exactly how to manipulate the situation. He gives the green light. Use Kirihito to do whatever you have to. The gears of the gang's influence are starting to turn. Tanzawa Atsushi hops onto the bike, his eyes gleaming with a hidden agenda. He agrees to help, but there's a catch, a condition that Kaname must fulfill in return. In the world of Chiba, nothing is ever free. Tanzawa's playful smirk hides the true weight of the condition he's about to impose. The deal is struck, but as Kaname accepts the terms, it's obvious that bringing Tatsuya into their orbit will change the face of Kirihito forever. The next morning, a harsh sun beats down on the West Chiba police station. While Tatsuya waits in the quiet of his cell, the strings are already being pulled from the shadows, unaware that a veteran officer is watching every second of the clock, ready for the first sign of foul play. At the West Chiba police station, Ishido sits in the corridor, his face a mask of cynical patience. He looks at the clock. It's getting late. His mind is busy piecing together the puzzle of the night's events, and he's increasingly certain that the influential Kirihito gang is pulling the strings behind the scenes. Ishido recalls Abe Kaname's panicked reaction earlier. To a veteran officer like him, it's a clear signal. He suspects Kirihito is using their reputation to intimidate the victim into withdrawing the complaint. But Ishido knows the law. Even without a complaint, the police can still prosecute violent crimes if they choose to. A dark smile spreads across Ishido's face. He isn't planning on letting this go easily. In his mind, the investigation isn't over until handcuffs are snapped onto the right wrists. He's a man who thrives on the hunt, and he's not about to let a group of delinquents outsmart him. The younger officer, Hajiwara, approaches Ishido with a file in hand. Ishido-san, we have the results, he says. Ishido looks up, his eyes sharp with anticipation. He expects to hear that the case against Tatsuya is solid, but Hajiwara's expression suggests otherwise. Hajiwara drops the bombshell. Iguchi Tatsuya has been cleared of suspicion and released. Ishido's eyes widen behind his glasses, his mouth dropping open in genuine shock. This wasn't part of his plan. The mad dog has slipped through his fingers, and he can't believe it. Standing outside the station gates, Iguchi Tatsuya takes a breath of fresh air. He's a free man once again, at least for now. He looks back at the building that almost became his cage, his expression unreadable as he processes his narrow escape. That can't be, he mutters to himself. Tatsuya lets out a massive yawn, the adrenaline from the night finally fading into exhaustion. He starts walking away from the station, hands in his pockets, when a familiar voice calls out to him. He stops, his sharp eyes scanning the street for the source of the interruption. Waiting for him are Abe Kaname and Imai Kenji. Kaname, wearing a loud floral shirt, greets him with a wide, smug grin. "Congratulations on being released," he shouts, looking incredibly pleased with himself. Next to him, Imai Kenji is bent over, catching his breath as if he's been running for hours. Tatsuya isn't in the mood for celebration. He rounds on Kaname, his face twisted in annoyance. "No fucking shit. What took you so long, asshole?" he barks. Kaname is taken aback by the hostility, But Tatsuya isn't finished. He calls them both useless, his frustration boiling over. The three of them bicker like siblings on the sidewalk. Kaname tries to play it cool, while Imai tries to apologize, but Tatsuya isn't having any of it. He points a finger at Imai, blaming him for the whole mess in the first place. Despite the shouting, there's a strange sense of camaraderie among these three outsiders. Outside the police station, Hagiwara and Ishido take a smoking break. On the ground near their feet, a group of ants crawls around a discarded piece of food. The atmosphere is quiet, a stark contrast to the heated exchange that just took place inside. Hagiwara looks pensive as he exhales a cloud of smoke. Hagiwara explains the turn of events. The actual perpetrators turned themselves in this morning. They claimed they were friends of the victim and that a fight broke out over a ring they had picked up together. It's a convenient story, one that neatly clears Tatsuya of any wrongdoing. Ishido listens, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. "We'll keep digging to see if we can find anything else," Hagiwara says, "but it's a civil case now. It's out of our hands." He assumes that once the parties settle out of court, that will be the end of it. He sounds relieved to have the case closed, but Ishido remains unconvinced. Hagiwara blows smoke into the air, stating the obvious conclusion. At any rate, Iguchi is innocent. Ishido turns to him, his gaze piercing. "Hagiwara, don't tell me you seriously believe that?" He can't believe his younger colleague is being so naive about the situation. Hagiwara smiles, reminding Ishido of a lesson he once taught. Better to let fish grow fat before eating them. Ishido's expression softens into a smirk. He realizes Hagiwara isn't being naive. He's being strategic. They're letting Tatsuya walk for now, but they'll be watching him, waiting for him to slip up. With a cold chuckle, Ishido slams his shoe down, crushing the ants beneath his heel. The metaphor is clear. They're the ones in control, and they can crush Tatsuya whenever they choose. "Anyway, want to go get something to eat?" Ishido asks his treat. The hunt continues, just with a longer leash. Tatsuya eventually makes his way back to the Min Yakiniku restaurant. As soon as he steps inside, he drops into a deep, formal bow. "I'm so sorry for worrying you too," he shouts, his voice echoing in the quiet shop. He knows he's caused a lot of trouble for his only family in Chiba. The auntie and the Min uncle stand there, staring at him in stunned silence. They've been worried sick, and seeing Tatsuya return safely is a huge relief, even if they're still processing the shock of his arrest. The uncle's face is hard to read, while the auntie looks like she's on the verge of tears. The auntie finally lets out a long sigh, her anger melting into motherly concern. "I can tell you mean it," she says softly. She tells him to go change his clothes and get something to eat, promising to save the lecture for later. Tatsuya looks down, his expression full of regret and gratitude. Soon, the familiar sizzle of meat on a grill fills the air. The rich aroma of yakiniku is a welcome change from the sterile smell of the police station. For a moment, the violence and the gangs feel like they're a world away, replaced by the simple comfort of a hot meal. Tatsuya, Abe Kaname, and Imai Kenji sit around a table, stuffing their faces with meat. Kaname is back to his boastful self, bragging about his authority. "Even the boss can't deny my requests," he says, looking incredibly smug. Tatsuya just rolls his eyes, listening to Kaname's grandstanding with a healthy dose of skepticism. Kaname leans back, a mock-sympathetic expression on his face. "I'm really sorry it came to this because of Imai," he says, barely containing a snicker. It's clear he's enjoying the situation a bit too much, playing the role of the benevolent savior to the hilt. Tatsuya is still fuming, unable to forget how close he came to being thrown back into a cell. He ignores Kaname's posturing, focusing on the meat in front of him. Next to him, Imai Kenji is eating like a man possessed, his cheeks bulging with food as he tries to stay out of the crossfire. Tatsuya isn't buying Kaname's grandpa act for a second, mockingly calling bullshit on the apology. Kaname, visibly offended, insists on the sheer effort it took to secure Tatsuya's release, revealing it was the leader Tanzawa's idea to have the others turn themselves in, a fact that only deepens Tatsuya's wariness of the mysterious Akan. Kaname admits that Tanzawa Atsushi is a cunning tactician, and simply dropping the charges was never going to satisfy him. As he rubs his forehead, clearly weighed down by the heavy condition Tanzawa attached to the favor, Tatsuya senses that his freedom has come at a steep price. "So, what do you want me to do?" he demands, ready to hear the terms of the deal. The price for Tatsuya's freedom is finally revealed. Tanzawa Atsushi, with a playful but chilling smile, tells Kaname his only condition: "I want you to set up a fight between me and Iguchi-kun." Kaname can only sigh in resignation. He knows that when Tanzawa makes a deal like this, there's no room for negotiation. Back at the restaurant, Kaname is still processing the weight of that deal. He notices Tatsuya has vanished, leaving him with the bill. Imai Kenji, however, is completely oblivious, stuffing his mouth with meat. Kaname snaps, asking if Kenji is even planning to pay for the mountain of food he's inhaling. Kenji dismisses the concern with a casual, "Phew, you're so stingy." He claims Tatsuya said it was all on Kaname. Kaname's temper flares. He tells Kenji to show some moderation since he's the one footing the bill for this expensive feast. The bickering is a brief moment of normalcy before the coming storm. Even the restaurant owner's wife joins in, telling Kaname-chan not to worry about the bill today. Kaname is still fuming, grabbing Kenji by the head in frustration. It seems the reputation of the feared Kirihito vice-head doesn't carry much weight in this neighborhood restaurant. Kaname's face drops when he hears the full extent of Tatsuya's generosity. Apparently, Tatsuya claimed Kaname was treating everyone for a whole week. On the grill, the meat sizzles, a delicious backdrop to Kaname's mounting financial despair as Kenji vows to eat until he pukes. Outside, under the night sky, Tatsuya stands with the Min uncle. The big man smokes quietly, offering some veteran wisdom. Not everything in the world can be settled by compromise. So long as you know why you did what you did, that's good enough. Tatsuya listens, his usual cocky facade softened by the quiet moment. Tatsuya stares at the ground, a rare look of contemplation on his face. "Okay," he murmurs. He's beginning to understand the weight of his own actions and the complicated world of loyalties he's just stumbled into. He realizes that for men like them, choices aren't always about right or wrong, but about staying true to themselves. As he smokes, Tatsuya reflects on the fight. It wasn't for some greater purpose or noble cause. It was just another fight for him, a simple, brutal reality he can't seem to escape. He looks up at the stars, feeling the weight of the path he's chosen. No matter where he goes, violence always seems to find him. The scene shifts to a brutal reality elsewhere in Chiba. A massive, hooded figure is on a rampage. He's on a mission to destroy anyone from Kirihito he can find. One unlucky member is already beaten bloody, staring up in terror at this giant who makes even Kaname look small. This is Kuji Gavara, and he's not looking for a fair fight. With terrifying strength, Kuji Gavara slams the Kirihito member's head into a concrete wall. The impact is sickening, blood spraying across the gray stone. Kuji's laughter is muffled by his mask, but the joy he takes in this senseless violence is unmistakable. He's not just a fighter, he's a force of nature. Tatsuya's internal monologue continues, a stark contrast to the violence. He thought about behaving himself after causing so much trouble, but he realizes his rehabilitation won't be that simple. In the background, the broken body of a Kirihito member lies slumped against the wall, a testament to the fact that peace is just an illusion. Kuji Gavara stands amidst a sea of defeated Kirihito members. He's left a trail of broken bodies and shattered bikes in his wake. "Yum yum," he taunts, looking for his next meal. Tatsuya's words ring true. Just thinking something will make it so doesn't make it true. The world is much more brutal than that. A few days later, at Chiba Station, Tatsuya and Kenji are people-watching, making crude jokes about the women passing by. Tatsuya is back to his arrogant self, claiming he could overcome any challenge by sheer force of will. Kenji just cries in frustration at his friend's impossible standards. Beggars can't be choosers, Tatsuya quips. The two of them lean against a railing, enjoying the sunny weather. Tatsuya looks like a king in his own mind, while Kenji is just happy to be along for the ride. They're waiting for Kaname, but the vice head is nowhere to be found. It's a peaceful afternoon in Chiba, but that peace is about to be shattered. Tatsuya grumbles about Kaname being 40 minutes late after specifically asking them to hang out. Kenji tries to defend him, suggesting Kaname must be busy with something important for Kirihito. He mentions that the gang has been so active lately that Kaname barely gets any sleep. Tatsuya just scoffs, suspecting another kind of delay. Tatsuya suspects Kenji is hiding something. He grabs Kenji's face, demanding to know what's going on. Kenji panics, begging Tatsuya to stop. He promised Kaname he'd keep his mouth shut, but Tatsuya's grip is firm. Nearby, the girls they were mocking walk by, calling them a bunch of creeps. The tension is rising. Meanwhile, at another location, Abe Kaname is finally getting on his bike. He's wearing his favorite rose-patterned shirt and cursing his own lateness. He knows Tatsuya is going to have a field day with this, probably making him pay for lunch as a penalty. He starts his Kawasaki, unaware that he's being watched. Kaname is just about to pull away when a voice stops him. "Excuse me," someone calls out. Kaname looks back, his face a mask of annoyance. He doesn't have time for distractions, but the tone of the voice suggests this isn't a random passerby. He sighs, expecting trouble. A young man with blonde hair and a confident smirk approaches. He admires Kaname's bike, specifically the Regent-style windshield and the CR carburetor. "You wouldn't happen to be Abe Kaname-san? Kirihito's number 2? He asks. The recognition is instant, and the tone isn't one of admiration. It's a challenge. Kaname remains stoic. "Who's asking?" he growls, his sharp eyes evaluating the stranger. The young man doesn't answer. Instead, he turns to his friends hidden in the shadows. "Guys, I found us a big fish." The realization hits Kaname. He's just been baited into a trap. In an instant, Kaname is surrounded. 4 members of the Bakuriken gang emerge, carrying metal pipes and baseball bats. They look like they've been waiting for this moment. Kaname stands his ground by his bike, his eyes scanning for an exit. "You guys are with Bakuriken," he notes, his voice low and dangerous. Tatsuya's internal monologue fills us in on the history. Bakuriken is a gang that runs the area along the Nagarima line. They used to be a racing gang on good terms with Kirihito, but things changed when the 8th generation took over. Now, their only interest seems to be picking fights and burning bridges. It's a war of succession. The guerrilla war between Kirihito and Bakuriken started half a month ago at a gathering. Raken launched a surprise attack that left 3 Kirihito members badly injured and in the hospital. Since then, there's been no peace, only a constant cycle of retaliation and blood. The streets of Chiba have become a battleground. The 8th generation of Bakuriken revolves around the 3 Shimahara brothers, better known as the 3 Gavar brothers. These are the men who have transformed a racing club into a paramilitary gang. Tatsuya knows of them, but he's never seen them in action until now. The name Gavar is a promise of brutality. One of the Bakuriken members doesn't wait for a signal. He lunges at Kaname, swinging a thick metal pipe with all his strength. Kaname, still by his bike, has to react instantly. The sound of metal whistling through the air marks the beginning of a fight Kaname might not be able to win alone. The big fish is officially hooked. Abe Kaname doesn't just survive the ambush, he dominates it. With a series of brutal, efficient strikes, he sends the Bakuriken members sprawling. He stands over them, breathing hard, his rose-patterned shirt a stark contrast to the violence he's just unleashed. He's not just a big fish, he's a shark. In the aftermath of the brief skirmish, the alley is littered with the unconscious bodies of the Bakuriken goons. Kaname stands tall, wiping blood from his lip. He knows this was just a scouting party, a prelude to something much larger and more dangerous. The silence of the alley feels heavy with the promise of more blood to come. Kaname pins one of the stragglers to the ground with his foot. "Who the fuck do you think I am?" he snarls. He demands to know how many more of them have invaded West Chiba. The terrified member stammers out the name that makes even Kaname's blood run cold. Gavar. It seems the middle brother has personally joined the hunt. A sudden shadow engulfs Kaname. He looks back, his eyes widening in shock, as he senses a presence far more imposing than the goons he just dispatched. Gavara, he murmurs, wondering which of the three legendary brothers has come to meet him. The air feels colder, the silence deeper. Looming over Kaname is a literal mountain of a man. Kuji Gavara, the middle brother, has arrived. He doesn't come with words. He comes with a massive piece of industrial machinery, lifting it over his head as if it were a child's toy. The raw, terrifying strength on display is beyond anything Kaname has ever faced. With a grunt of effort, Kuji Gavara prepares to launch the heavy object. Kaname stands frozen for a split second, dwarfed by the sheer scale of the man standing before him. The bandana mask with its skull motifs only adds to the sense that Kaname is facing a reaper rather than a rival delinquent. The massive object crashes down, but Kaname manages to dodge at the last second. He stares in disbelief at the crater left in the concrete. Kuji peers over his mask, his eyes dark and empty. This isn't a fight for territory or pride. It's a slaughter, and Kuji is the butcher. Kaname realizes he's in way over his head. A close-up of Kuji's eyes reveals a chilling lack of humanity. Behind the skull mask, he's watching Kaname like a predator watches its prey. The chains around his neck rattle as he moves, a sound that heralds the coming destruction. Kaname can only stare, his own fighting spirit momentarily dampened by the sheer presence of the giant. While the alleyway turns into a death trap, Tatsuya and Kenji are enjoying ice cream popsicles in the sun. Tatsuya asks if the Gavara brothers are actually strong. Kenji explains the hierarchy. The oldest, Kazumasa, is 19 and runs a construction company as a front for his illegal talyuing business. He's the brains, the one who turns girls into gangbangers. Kenji continues his briefing. Then there's Kuji, the middle brother. He's 18, nearly 2 meters tall, and lives for the thrill of the fight. The rumors say he once took on 8 men at once and won without breaking a sweat. Tatsuya listens, a skeptical smirk on his face. He's heard plenty of rumors before, and most of them were just hot air. Finally, there's the youngest, Kenzu, who's only 17. He's supposedly the nastiest of them all because he never fights alone, always bringing a whole squad to ensure total destruction. Tatsuya wonders why guys like that never seem to get arrested. Kenji suggests they might just be more committed to the lifestyle. Tatsuya just licks his ice cream, seemingly unconcerned. Back in the alley, the carnage has resumed. Kuji Gavara has Kaname pinned under a motorcycle wheel, his laughter ringing out like a death knell. He taunts Kaname, his strength making the powerful vice head look small and nimble by comparison. Kaname's eyes are wide with shock and pain as he realizes the sheer gap in their power. Kuji leans in close, his voice a cheerful contrast to the brutality. Nice to meet you. I'm Gavara Kui-kun, from the Bakurikan Special Attack Forces. He's practically giddy with the excitement of the fight. Kaname, standing 188 centimeters tall himself, feels like a child in the shadow of this giant. This guy is even bigger than I heard, he thinks. Kuji cracks his knuckles, his massive G pendant swaying. Now, let's play A, he shouts, calling Kaname shorty. Tatsuya and Kenji, still oblivious, discover Tatsuya has won a double Atari on his ice cream stick. The juxtaposition between their lucky break and Kaname's literal life and death struggle is jarring and dark. The scene briefly shifts to the West Chiba General Hospital. Nobu, Hikaru, and Hiro, Kihito members, are in bad shape after a Bakurikan ambush. Kaname visits them, his face full of regret. Even Tanzawa at Sushi has been there, leaving his signature and some inappropriate graffiti on one of the casts. Kaname vows to take care of the rest. Back in the alleyway, Kuji is strictly enforcing his playtime. He warns his own men not to interfere, promising to kill anyone who gets in his way. He wants Kaname all to himself. He mocks Kaname again, calling him Lil Grandpa. Kaname's eyes narrow, his pride wounded and his fury reaching a breaking point. Fuck that, he growls. Kaname snaps. You sent 4 of our guys to the hospital. He snarls. He's finished with the games. I'm gonna end you here and now. Kuji just giggles, his tone light and airy. Teehee, this is war, you know? Why are you so serious? For Kuji, the pain of others is just a form of entertainment. He's gonna have fun whether Kaname likes it or not. Kaname lunges, throwing a powerful punch, but it's like hitting a wall of solid muscle. Kuji doesn't even flinch. He just stares at Kaname with those empty eyes, waiting for his turn. Kaname is sweating, his breathing shallow. He realizes the rumors about Kuji weren't exaggerations. This man isn't just big, he's a fortress. Kuji Gavar retaliates with a strike that feels like being hit by a truck. He catches Kaname right in the chest, the force of the blow sending shockwaves through his body. Kaname's eyes bulge in pain and disbelief. He's used to being the one delivering the hits, but now he's on the receiving end of something truly inhuman, is all he can think. The impact sends Kaname flying backward through the air. He crashes into a wall covered in Kilahito graffiti, his body limp and broken. The sheer power Kuji possesses is terrifying. He isn't just fighting, he's dismantling his opponent piece by piece. Kaname lets out a choked scream of agony as he hits the ground. Kuji peers over his mask, his voice dripping with mock concern. Does it hurt? He asks. Kaname is struggling to breathe, clutching his head in pain. He's never been hit this hard in his entire life. How strong is this guy? He wonders. He tries to find his fighting spirit again, but the pain is overwhelming. The alleyway has become his tomb. Back at the station, Tatsuya and Kenji have finished their ice cream and moved on to soda. Tatsuya asks why everyone is so afraid of the Gavar brothers. He still doesn't get the hype. For him, they're just more names on a long list of delinquents he could probably beat in a fight. Kenji, however, looks much more worried. Kenji takes a long sip of his soda, his eyes downcast. Well, according to the rumors, and for the record, I think it's bullshit, but he hesitates, as if even repeating the stories is dangerous. Tatsuya watches him, his interest finally peaked. He knows Kenji isn't one to get worked up over nothing. The mood has shifted from playful to somber. Apparently, there's a possibility they might have killed someone. Kenji finally admits, his voice low. Tatsuya's expression doesn't change, but he takes in the information. Killing isn't something people joke about in this world. It's the ultimate taboo, and anyone who breaks it is a different kind of animal altogether. The rumors are taking a dark turn. Kenji adds that while he thinks it's mostly talk, one thing is true. At least one person has disappeared after crossing the Gavar brothers. Tatsuya just scoffs. Good lord, that smells like some bullshit. He still refuses to believe the legends. If they were really killers, they'd be in the slammer by now. He has no idea that his friend Kaname is living that nightmare right now. Kenji continues the dark history of Bakurikan. Half a year ago, when the oldest Gavar brother, Kazumasa, took over, they launched a guerrilla war against a team called Hau. It was the same brutal tactic they're using against Kilahito right now. Silent, swift, and devastating. In a straight-up fight, Hau should have won with their superior numbers. But Bakurikan didn't fight fair. They abducted, imprisoned, and tortured the head of Hau and his 4 top executives. The trauma was so great that the executives quit the delinquent life immediately upon their release. They were broken men. But the head of Hau wasn't so lucky. According to the rumors, he was never released. To this day, people have no idea where he is or what happened to him in those dark rooms. He simply vanished, leaving behind a legacy of fear that Bakurikan uses to silence their enemies. Tatsuya still thinks the stories are bullshit, a way for small-time thugs to sound more dangerous than they are. But Kenji knows the reality of the streets. The rumors are enough of a menace that they've begun to spread like wildfire. He notes that many guys are forced to leave their homes once they go too far, including himself. Back in the alleyway, Kaname refuses to go down without a fight. He puts everything into a punch, aiming right for Kuji's masked face. But his effort feels futile against the mountain of a man. Kuji doesn't even bother to block, taking the hit with a chilling indifference that speaks of his inhuman durability. Gavar merely watches Kaname's fist bounce off him, his empty eyes reflecting the sunset. Nice one, he chirps, as if he's encouraging a child. He steps forward, his massive frame casting a shadow of doom over the vice head. Kaname's desperation is palpable as he prepares for the inevitable retaliation. Kuji retaliates with a strike of his own. It's a simple punch, but the power behind it is staggering. It catches Kaname right in the mouth, sending a spray of blood into the air. The rose-patterned shirt is now stained with red, a grim reminder of the gap between a delinquent and a monster. Kaname staggers back, blood dripping from his nose and chin. He's in a daze, his mind reeling from the impact. Guh, all this fucking retard strength. He thinks, cursing the sheer biological unfairness of Kuji's power. He knows he can't win a brawl, but he isn't out of moves just yet. Desperate, Kaname unleashes his signature move, a spin back roundhouse kick. It's a beautifully executed strike, spinning with enough force to crack bone. The kick lands perfectly on the side of Kuji's head, the impact echoing through the narrow alleyway. For a second, it looks like Kaname might have turned the tide. But Gavar that doesn't go down. He barely even flinches. He stands over Kaname, who has fallen to the ground after the exertion. The skull mask is still in place, the laughter still bubbling in his chest. Ha ha ha. Wow, that ought to do it, he taunts. Kaname realizes with a sinking heart that his best shot wasn't enough. Shit, this is bad. Meanwhile, at Chiba Station, the clock strikes 4 p.m. Tatsuya has officially lost his patience. He decides to pass the time by hitting on some girls passing by. He approaches a group of women, trying to be suave, but failing miserably. The girls look at him with a mix of confusion and disgust. Are you waiting for someone? One asks. Shopping, Tatsuya quips. Tatsuya's seduction is a total disaster. He thinks he's scoring, but in reality, he's just annoying everyone in the vicinity. Kenji watches from the side, sweating as he sees Tatsuya try for the 40th time. He realizes that Tatsuya has no social filters when he's bored, and it's becoming increasingly embarrassing. Shit, I ain't scoring at all. Tatsuya grumbles. Kenji tries to steer Tatsuya away, noting that he looks like a host with awful pickup lines. Tatsuya just scoffs. I don't want to hear that from some kid gangster. He continues to check his phone, wondering why Kaname is still MIA. The sun is starting to set, and the peaceful afternoon is reaching its end. The thought finally crosses their minds. What if something happened to Kaname? Kenji is worried it might be Bakurikan. Tatsuya acknowledges the possibility. They're in the middle of a war, after all. He looks at Kenji, his eyes sharpening as he considers the implications. If the Kyohito vice head has been taken out, the rules of the game have just changed. But before they can leave, a group of 3 local women approaches them with mischievous grins. They've been watching Tatsuya's antics, and they're not impressed. Don't think we haven't noticed, one says. You just locked onto us with a super horny look in your eyes, didn't you? Tatsuya is caught off guard by their bluntness. The women are relentless, mocking Tatsuya and Kenji with zero hesitation. One of them even suggests Tatsuya wanted to suck her titties, much to Kenji's horror. Tatsuya tries to play it cool, but the situation has spiraled into a bizarre comedy. Kenji panics, screaming at the women to stop joking because they're actually looking for a friend. Wah, no, Tatsuya-kun, he cries out. Back in the alleyway, the comedy is over. Gavar has Kaname by the throat, hoisting his broken body against a wall. The vice head of Kyohito is barely conscious, his feet dangling off the ground. Kuji's goons watch in silence, the gravity of the situation finally sinking in. This isn't just a beating, it's an execution. Cuckoo. Kaname gasps for air. Kuji reveals his orders. His big brother Kazumasa told him to kidnap the leaders of Kyohito, and he's just being thorough. Kaname is his first prize. Simultaneously, the women at the station tell Tatsuya and Kenji that a real manly friend of theirs should show up any minute. Kenji begs the absent Kaname to hurry up, unaware that the vice head is already in the hands of the enemy. The war has truly begun.